Hello, everybody, and finally, welcome back to the coalition reviews that I started doing over 2 years ago. I believe I started with the USA and NORAD, funnily enough, and it was not intentional, on the 4th of July. And now, over 1 year after the last review, which I believe was Israel, we are finally here with the Soviets. And of course, I'm not alone. I'm here with one of the most experienced players, especially when it comes to Soviets. Over 2,500 games, approximately, of Soviets in ranked alone, Putin187.
Hello, guys. Yeah, a lot of games in ranked. My favorite deck. So I'm glad for you having me here.
Really, I wouldn't have thought that's your favorite deck. Kind of surprising. No, but in all seriousness, Soviet deck, of course. There's of course a reason why I brought you here. It's because it is probably one of the hardest decks to play in 1v1s, unless you just want a healer rush, which is a whole different story. So you're hopefully gonna give the people and me some tips and a lot of knowledge.
I hope so. I wouldn't say like this is the hardest. Maybe it's definitely tricky deck to play. There are more difficult because they don't have options. USSR has a lot of options, but difficulty is like you need to know how to use them correctly. And I guess we'll try to help you with all of this.
Yeah,
With some review.
So I guess the difficulty also stems from the fact that it very often plays a lot differently than many other decks, right? Like USA and Lancet as well as Scandi, right? They have like the 5-pointer spam, for example, that you also see in Baltic Front as well. So a lot of these decks in many situations play kind of similar, but you don't really have this when it comes to Soviets.
Yes, mostly overall, the classical bulk of 5-pointers, infantry and tanks, the classical bulk of your force is not as effective here with the Soviets. So you really have to use your a wide variety of assets, supportive assets, to make those a bit less effective bulk units to work excellent. That's like maybe that's the biggest difference in my opinion, that might be in comparison to the other decks.
Yeah, you don't have like these cheap units that you can just spam anywhere and they're gonna be useful anywhere.
Yeah.
Like when you spam Razzmann, they're no matter what, they're always gonna be useful in one form or another. Yeah.
Would you say the USSR is the epitome of the combined arms here in the Wargame?
If with combined arms you mean combining a lot of helicopters, then no, I'm just kidding. But you could say that. I mean, at least when it comes to the top decks, I guess if you were to play, let's say, I don't know, like a weak national deck, of course you would probably also have to do a lot of combined arms. But when it comes to like the strong decks or the top tier decks, when it comes to competitive war game, then probably needs combined arms the most. I think sometimes people like to downplay it a bit because, while you also have done that yourself, a lot of people who play Soviets tend to just do it in a very cheesy way, and it can very much work.
That's true.
But I think against more competitive opponent, or especially if the Soviets start losing, then you'll notice when the player is good if they actually manage to come back, because I think coming back as Soviets can be one of the toughest things. At least in a quote unquote normal way that doesn't involve like just flying around 5 helicopters. Which isn't, of course, it isn't just a Soviet thing, but coming back with a deck outside of cheesing, is of course always difficult. But I think with Soviets it tends to be even more difficult.
On the other hand, like Soviet is one of the best decks if you are ahead. I guess it's just the decks that you bring all your tools and you just start winning more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the hardest part is like to start getting ahead of your opponent when you're gonna start exploiting all your expensive stuff.
All those tools you have access to.
Yes.
All right. Shall we get into the units then?
Definitely. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Logistics. The BMD line, BMD1, BMD2. Have you used them much?
No, because I prefer the speed usually. for my infantry CVs, but definitely BMD2K. It's a nice unit. 130 points for a thing that can defend itself somewhat. It's not that bad.
Amphibious can also be nice, although unfortunately there are not a lot of zones with rivers in them where you could hide CVs. I think if more zones had that, then the amphibious capabilities of a CV would certainly become quite useful. Because with the river always being like a bit lower, it's a bit tough to get line of sight there unless you're in the river yourself.
Definitely, but it's not happening in ranked. I think that we have no zone in all ranked maps that are spanning over the river. There is not like that happens only in combined or naval maps, I think.
I don't think it has to be naval maps, but I don't think in any 1 versus 1 maps that is the case. But I think that, for example, the D-Day, I believe one of the second spawns goes like across a river. I'm certain there are team games where rivers cross through zones.
Definitely, yes.
But not in 1 versus 1s. Now that you mention it.
Vonson Harbor is one of the maps. I think there is around the river.
Yes,
I think there is
around at the edge of like the one with the big forest, right?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are some, but it's Vonson Harbor, and like those are removed from the rank pool.
Yeah, I think in general, amphibious capabilities is really underused in Wargame or wrongly used, but that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Out of all these armored CVs here, which we have BMP1K, BMD1K, and BMD2K. The BMD2K is the best one, and I don't think there is any reason to go for anyone BMD ones and BMP ones.
I think especially a BMP1K is significantly worse, not just because of the garbage Manutka, but losing that 2 side armor in favor of 1 front armor is really bad, because 2 front and 2 side means you're gonna be decently protected against HE artillery, so you only get full damage from top or the rear. But having only more than one armor on the front means that in many situations where you're getting hit by HERT, you're gonna take full damage.
Yes,
I think that's why I think the side armor and when it comes to tank CVs, also a bit the rear armor tends to sometimes be overlooked, which is one of the reasons why the Leopard 1 CV is tankier than like a BMD1, of course, but still very often gets killed by artillery, HE artillery.
Speaking of tanks, we have 2 tanks here. T-72 K1 and God CV, T-80 UK.
It really, yeah.
The cheapest CV you can get.
It is
200 points.
It is one of the best units in many 10v10 tactical games, I would say.
Definitely.
But T80K is certainly very. But first T72K1, I think it's still solid.
It is definitely solid. On the other hand, it's like about its tank capabilities is a 45-point tank, which is a base T72, and you're just paying for the CV capability 105 points. So it's really only about the survivability here, nothing else.
But I think it's not the best tank CV, but I think I still prefer it over like the Eastern Bloc T72s that are 160 points, and then you got a T72M. There you just pay for a bit of gun stats and a bit of maybe not even that much armor that you really don't need. So I think it's still one of the better ones.
It's a solid choice.
And it's reasonably fast as well. That's something that's always useful to have on a CV, which is why I don't like the Centurion CV, for example. Just being so slow is really annoying.
Yeah, this is decently mobile, so if you need a survivable CV just to sit there and not to fight with it, this is your good choice.
And then of course T80 UK, and not a lot of people are using it besides you, really. At least in 1v1s.
I mean, it's still a tricky unit to play. It's a 150-point tank. If you use it as a tank, it's a bit still you're paying for the CV, extra 50 points, which is not much. But still, to make it useful as a tank, right? You need to be moving it, and it's a thing you don't want to do with the CV usually. And it's always it's still 200 points of investment. It's a lot.
Yeah, you obviously don't want to leave it in like starting zones or something like that. So it's certainly best in like contested zones or the front line, like something
Definitely.
like mud fight or something like that when it's contested, but you just can't afford to not have a CV in there. Those situations, and ideally, of course, like mid to late game when it's best, of course, when the opponent doesn't really have their any or only a few anti-tank planes left, because it is a very prime target for laser guided bombs, right? For Kernasses, for Hornets, that type. 200 points for a tank that is not nearly as survivable as a super heavy, especially with the 3 top armor when it comes to Nighthawks and Kernasses. That's a juicy target.
I mean, 200 TAT UK is one of the juiciest targets you can get in the war
Period.
game.
Yeah. I mean the juiciest of all non-naval units, really.
Yeah.
Although it has to be said, with a 75k mage speed, and if you have like good micro, then you might be able to bait planes as well, popping in and out of cover and then trying to have those planes fly over your AA and then losing line of sight last seconds.
Definitely. If you have a lot of micro to spare, definitely you can do this.
Just be aware of its rather low autonomy. The T80 line is one of the few Red 4 tanks that don't have the greatest autonomy. With their, I mean, I think the T72s are like diesel engines and the T80s are like gas turbines.
Gas turbine, yes.
Like the
That's why
Abramses.
it's like same as Abrams, as you say.
Right. I think that's enough about the T80, okay, yeah?
Yeah, well, let's move on.
Infantry CV.
Infantry CV in decent transport, like definitely the helicopters are what makes this CV a great choice.
K29 and MTV, of course, the prime choices. Never, unless of course you're in red dragons or something, where you have no other choice, of course. But M8T and TV are just horrible. These 1HE rocket pods are just so bad. They're just horrible.
Definitely horrible, especially because the higher dispersion, normal rocket pod has 0.1 dispersion, I think, like some value, and these have like double the dispersion, and that's why they are looking like they cannot aim.
Hold up, I have the armory tool open. See if I can find that stat.
I think it's in firepower or something.
Yeah, the angle dispersion, I think it might
angle
be.
Dispersion.
So
I think it's angle dispersion.
So we have the MTV. Oh no, it's the NSVT. The S13 rocket pod angle dispersion 0.01, and then on the MI8T it's 0.02.
All these small rocket pods have this.
Yeah, that's when you see it in game, it's very obvious. Like the rockets just tend to go out in like a 90-degree angle left and right, just so far away from the actual target. And combine that with the fact that the splash radius of the individual rockets is also much lower, means that you're doing very little damage. Because even if the MTVs and K29s they roll a miss, they still do very often like some damage just because of the bigger splash radius. But with 1 HE and such a slow splash radius, your damage output is so incredibly low. Unless you're on a lead and very close or something, or you're critting a Leclerc to death.
Which was amazing.
Yeah.
And especially the sound you had. Guys, if you don't know what you're talking about, it's one of the Razzmann's video, one of the best wargame memes out there.
I hope I don't forget to link it in the comments or in the description.
Yeah, please do it.
All right, next up, MI4A. Please don't use this at all.
It's one of the worst.
I mean,
it has 6 HP, but it's very slow.
Helicopter CVs in general are just bad. Even though I think you can, do you still try to use it in Israel? The Siphon?
Yeah, just for me. And Siphon is a bit faster than this.
I mean, but even then, just don't bother with it, okay?
No.
Anyone, please. Okay, UAC, BRDM, and BTR.
Well, URZ, so there's nothing to talk about it. Everybody knows what the URZ is.
Yeah.
BRDM too. It's a decent alternative. Sometimes it saved me that I had the BRDM too. You can survive like one burst of autocannon, usually, which the UAZ would not survive. It's more mobile than the UAZ. It's a decent vehicle.
It's okay.
Even though it's okay. It's not stellar, but it's okay for what it does.
Yeah,
BTR 70k is a bit pricey.
yeah, I think if it was a BTR 80k with a late KPVT for better defensive purposes and 2 side armor,
Oh,
that would be very interesting, to say the least. For the same price, of course.
Yeah.
You don't want to
But
pay like
BTR
140 or 145 points for such a lightly armored and armed CB. But if it had that more side armor and later KPVT, would be very interesting.
Yeah, might be actually like thing to consider for sure. Now, definitely not in 1v1. This BTR 70k is not worth it.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, MTP LB. I mean, besides the fact that they are significantly less price efficient, right? You get 50 supply per point, whereas the 20-point duel you get 55. It's just much slower, and the amphibious capability is virtually useless. It can be nice at times, I assume, but it's just not worth the hassle.
Yeah. And overall, I think I was thinking about this unit a bit because we don't have that big of an advantage for the tracked vehicles in the game, like modeled advantage for the tracked units in comparison to the real. As I know that it might work in the real life, right? That they are much better off road. So we don't have this model, so this
not really a role for them.
It's not giving you an edge.
And the armor doesn't really help that much either. Of course, against autocannons, they're gonna not die as quickly, but if you're getting shot at, you're already dead anyway, most of the time. So that doesn't really help much either.
Yep.
Supply helos, the big boys.
The chunky ones.
I mean, of course, I mean, MI6, 75 points. In general, in case people don't know, supply helicopters per point are a lot less efficient than trucks, but of course they're much faster. But then again, you can't, generally speaking, have them nearly as close to the front line, so the speed you get isn't really that worth it. But of course, the Mi-26 is just
Mi-26 is actually efficient as supply track.
Okay, yeah, because of course the more expensive you get, and of course supply healers got buffed a long time ago. But it's just the biggest of boys, like.
It's a mobile FOB.
Basically, it's kind of, I mean, more than 1/3 of a FOB, but less than half. But I mean, there's still no real role in 1v1s. Have you ever considered, or did you ever try them?
I haven't. I think I tried it like a long time ago. But actually, with the new CV sniping, the FOB
sniping.
I was considering
that is actually a good point.
Everybody's sniping the FOB, so I was considering to take this unit.
I mean, to put it, if for some reason you have the, I assume 3 AP needed for the 5th slot, the 3 AP free and the slot free to put something in, it's not like you have to buy the unit at the start. So even if you don't end up buying it, it's not like you waste 110 points. But of course, the problem is just being able to fit it into your deck.
Overall, I believe this unit might be amazing in big games. Definitely, when you have a front line really far away from your FOBs, right? You have like 10v10 or like 44 on the floods, and your FOBs are really back. So you get this Mi-26 just loitering between.
And then
like
have
approximately 5 kilometers behind your front line.
And then have the trucks run from the Mi-26 to the front line. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But it's just
front line is like really 10 or 12 kilometers from your FOBs.
It's something that people said very often, like on the forums. I remember as well, justifying supply helicopters. They're useful for that. In practice, there are just few maps where that is actually worth it. Plus, of course, it's a point investment. You have to buy supply trucks and a supply helo, and then you have to coordinate it. So in reality, it's really only useful in like Putin said, these huge maps, floods and 10v10s to a certain extent. Yeah. And then lastly, the 2 supply trucks. I mean,
very standard ones.
Yeah, I definitely
supply trucks are super standardized.
Yeah, I personally always prefer the 20-point ones. 20-point ones are my in my opinion, I prefer the most when playing FOBs, and without FOBs, the 30-point ones.
I totally agree with you.
All right.
So we covered the logistics. Continue on with the
Gonos Strelki, your favorite infantry squad.
Definitely, I saw your one of your recent videos about unit choice, and they said like that they are viable. I don't think so.
I mean, what, base Gonos Strelki? Or
Well,
90s? I mean, viable in a sense that, you know, they're incredibly cost inefficient, but they're not like absolutely useless on the field. I put them in the second lowest tier, the base ones.
I would put the 90s there as well. They are not worth
I don't
CPF.
think there is. I know that you really don't like them, to put it mildly, but I think they are actually a bit underrated. Maybe I overrate them a bit, but I think you underrate them at least a bit as well.
Maybe I am just super not fan of how Metis flies. It's so slow. It's slower than the Milan. It's the slowest ATGM in the game. Like the
But
slowest
it's
one.
really not that big of a deal since you have only 1500-meter range anyway.
It's very inaccurate.
Which of course, having such a low range for ATGM is of course a difference, but at that distance the speed isn't as big of a deal as it would be if it had like 2400-meter range or something. Anyway, back to the units. The first one, the base Gunnerstriker are of course pretty bad compared to. I mean, for one, East Germany has basically the same one, but at shock veterancy for the same price, and even they are not really used very much. And then 20 points for basic weaponry, basic assault rifle, basic PKM, and the Metis that is. It would be fine for the 15, or pretty good for 10 points, like light Razzmann, but for 20 points it just doesn't quite do the trick. Especially since the cheapest transport is 15 points as well, so 35 points at least for a unit that isn't very good against infantry, and not particularly amazing against vehicles either, to put it mildly.
Of course. And in general, like the best comparison is, I think, to the light rifleman actually.
Mm-hmm.
And light rifleman, they are the same priced and much better because of the super extended range. And they actually saw the role in the US decks. Unlike here, the Gornos with this low range. Also with how the calculation works, the area is actually a lot lower. It's like 1/2 of the area that is covered.
The circle around them, basically.
Circle around them.
Yeah. And of course,
So
Super Dragons are also just a bit more accurate, etc. And then having to spend only 10 points on a transport because you don't even get a BTR 80 either, right? Which was actually a decent 15-point transport, but you only get a 60 PB and a 70. And then, of course, as weak as they are, getting them in like an early hero drop or something for a town to defend it it's just gonna get overrun, and people are gonna ignore it and just drive the 5 pointers up and kill them.
Yeah, just not threat.
God of Strike 90 are a threat though.
Yeah, especially for super heavies.
I mean, yes, they still don't have a huge circle around them, but the circle that I have around them is gonna just kill everything once it gets hit. Like, it's 26 AP. That is a big oomph.
It's as much as a Milan F3 and as much as Mavericks, which is most blue for ATGMs actually, plane-based ATGMs.
Mm-hmm. But of course, range 30 points, and you can't get them in ground transports either. For like one patch, they had access to the BTR 80A and the BTR 90, and then it got removed. And at that patch, they were quite strong. Maybe they were also 25 points. I don't know. But I think
I think it was 30, but still, it was a decent thing to open with, right? Because you got a combo.
And the BTR 90 or something helped with like infantry defending against infantry if it walked up or anything. I still like to use them in the MTV, but I think they might also. They're probably not a good fit for 1v1s, but I think in team games, they can be nice. For example, I very much remember them using them in Battlefield, on the 2v2 Battlefield, in the central town when pushing there. Then there are a lot of engagements where the Metis can actually shoot at vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's go. Yeah.
units to use. Let's go straight to the Morskaya Pehotana.
Yeah.
90.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
Let's skip
the
let's
base
skip the
ones cost the
75.
same, so the 90s are just basically all the ones you use all the time.
Yeah. About those, literally just town fighters. Town fighters. And sometimes you might use them as a fast reactionary force because for the transport they have a really good transport options.
BT90, BT88, K29. Not really much to. Not much to ask for. You could. I'm not sure. Really, I don't think it's a particularly great idea. But if you're feeling fancy, you could run like a card upvetted in the MTLBV if you want just cheap, plentiful, high-val town fighters. But it's a bit weird. But I guess
Yeah.
not the worst unit card in the game.
Yeah, it's really usable. Mostly useful when you need infantry to pull the weight. Definitely.
I think I'm not sure if I have in which one, but I still run the card of them in the 80A or 90. I think it's in the 80A. Don't remember. But yeah,
in 80A you actually get a lot of availability.
Yeah, you definitely lose a bit in the 90 and probably in the K29 as well, I assume.
Yeah. But it's a nice card in either of the transport, like BTR 80A, mostly BTR 90 for if you feel to need that, and or K29. All these three are excellent options for killing the infantry. Nothing else. It kills the infantry very well.
It's the best. I think it's the best threat for MG, right? Unless besides the MG3 used by some of the Yugoslav units. All right then, Motostrelki.
Underrated unit.
I mean, you basically buy them for the transports, right?
Usually yes, but sometimes you can also buy them for the meat shield.
Yeah, I mean you still can use them in the 5-pointer, right? But it's just not a very good meat shield in today's meta.
Yeah, you get more efficient ways of getting meat shield, but this is with the meat shield you always are trading. You're buying time with the meat shield, right? That's what meat shield is for, to buy time for your damage dealers. And if you can deal a lot of damage, right, the more in the short time, the more efficient your meat shield is.
True. But
So
also
overall USSR is kind of good at dealing a lot of HE damage in a short time. It's kind of good at it, especially the MTVs, the 4HE tanks, which we'll get to later.
yeah.
So still, it's viable to take them.
Which transports you think? I mean, yeah, which transports you think are the most noteworthy ones? BMP2 OBR86 and BMD1D, BMP1D.
BMP1D, yes, people like to use them. I'm not a big fan, but it's definitely grenade launcher for 20
I think
points.
it's
Why not
just
like?
overshadowed by the fact that you have access to the BTRT.
Yes, if you wouldn't have the
But
BTRT,
it's still an okay choice.
definitely the BMP2 OBR96 is excellent unit. I think still. If there's not that many smoke on the field, yeah, BMP2 is nice. For sure, MTLB is nice. Still okay choice just for the cost efficiency. Some players suggested using the BTR70. I just found it a bit already too expensive for the package.
That is odd. I mean, if it's a BTR 80, I would still not really use it, but I could understand it. But BTR 70 is just like you have to. The thing with the one sidearm is of course right when you're trying to like I don't know run down something or so, you get shot to the side by an AMX-10 and you're instantly dead and lose a few infantry squads as well. So
yeah, there's a problem with non-armored stuff.
Ugh.
But yeah, but the BMP2 OB96 good autocannon, MTLB just for super cheap, and BMP1D if he is overshadowed. Overall, what I would like to add, I think you mentioned it in a lot of your videos, but the RPG7 is not a garbage launcher.
Oh yeah, it's probably when it comes to 10-point infantry, probably the best launcher. I definitely would say it's better than the M72A4 in most scenarios. Just having that range is so useful.
Very useful.
Also, the reason why base Mordschützen are just so much better than base Proletary. That RPG7 is just a very good anti-tank weapon that you don't have to pay a premium for ever, really.
Definitely.
Unless you're an infantry squad named Dushandui.
Legend, you have to play premium for that.
Yeah.
Also, like definitely the law. I had experience with the rifleman, base rifleman, with the base law, and in the close range engagement, 4 stack. I had a quad stack of those, 4 of them, and they missed. All 4 of them missed 8, like two shots in a row, and the rate of fire didn't help. They all got mulched eventually. It was a terrible experience by 5 pointers.
Yeah, it's a 30% base accuracy and 500-meter range for you. Frustrating.
So,
But,
yeah.
all right. Modus Reiki 90.
Scary AP.
Scary AP,
Yeah.
not so scary accuracy and range.
Yes.
It's excusable on a line infantry squad. I mean, it's really the only other line infantry squad that is actually scary to vehicles are Fusilier 90s. I mean, Rifleman 90 and like the Swedish ones, they're still somewhat scary, but the only really scary, the big bad ones, are only Modus Reiki 90 and Fusilier 90s, of course. But there's just no real role for that in Soviets.
And it's simply because you have the unit we will get
VDV-90.
to with the V90. Other than that, I think in some deck, like if you really play mech or you play the armor deck, you might consider one card of
Probably a
these.
card, yeah.
Probably.
But it's just so inconsistent. It's again, it's excusable given that you only pay 15 points for that. So that in that sense they are alright, but given the fact that Soviets have access to like so much better anti-tank weaponry on their other infantry squads, it's not really, yeah. But the only reason you really get them is if you want either cheap
Go ahead. I had the cheap BTR 80.
yeah, BTR 80A or 90. 90 is probably, I think if you're buying a 90 for 30 points, then you probably want to go for more Skya for 10 points more. BTR 80A is good, and sometimes, or BMP3, right?
BMP3.
That's the only way to get a BMP3.
Yeah, it's a nice transport. Would be better if you could do base motor Strelky with the BMP3 because really those extra 5 points usually you don't need them. So
yeah, would be also interesting if you could get them with like, I don't know, Igla squads or something like that, or Factorias.
BMP3s.
Would that be? You think you'd see them more? Noticeably more?
Noticeably more, I would say so. I mean, if you could take the Igla, yeah, definitely might be a good.
I just find it weird that, like, for example, USA gets Stingers with Bradleys. I think Yugoslavia also gets their line with, and then others don't. I don't know if sometimes it's based on real life, or if other times it's just based on Eugen being fancy or not.
Yeah, I never understood this how some units got their transport, like the logic behind it. Never understood.
I mean,
that.
some logic is obviously right. For example, airborne troops, for the most part, only having access to airborne transports because they just in their, I don't know, their army part, whatever, just didn't use those transports. But when it comes to like these Factoria squads, the ATGM squads, and Stinger squads, etc., those are basically used in every specialization. So you'd think that maybe they should also have access to all transports. But again, that's just a different discussion.
That's a different topic.
Yeah.
Continue with the so many times mentioned Tour Factoria.
It is together with all other, really, I think literally any other 10.8 gem squad, they're just very underrated. Although I think these days more people tend to use them.
Yeah, definitely 16 AP, and it's essentially they essentially do for you what you would want from a Gorno Strelky to do. They just not literally because they don't survive, but they kill a lot of cheap stuff, a lot of cheap and sometimes even expensive. A lot of soft skins targets can be picked by a long range, decently long range for how cheaply they are priced. So and improved accuracy over the Fagot, which is the other standard Red 4 equivalent with the 16 IP. Yeah, they are great. Factorias are great unit. really happy I'm using them.
Spamming them in a 5-pointer or getting them for a cheap MTV or even a combination with the Scratcher is I think good. I'm using the Milan F1 in the VAP T20 in my Eurocore deck. There's a lot of good ways to use those cheap ATGM squads.
Yeah. MTV, Scratcher, BTRD, the best 3 options for the Factorio.
Yeah, alright. Although didn't you try them in the BTRD robot as well? At least for a very short time?
A very short time. I wasn't really happy about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Base concourse, I don't think we really need to talk much. I think if you're using the concourse, you might as well go for the concourse M, right?
I think so, yeah.
At that point. That extra accuracy and most notably AP really helps.
Yeah, here it's already a different role. It's not about killing soft skin targets and like those opportunistic picks. This is a go-to ATGM. Really sniper, yeah. You position in like one or double stack in a crucial position, and it's going to be hard to dislodge. Definitely, enemy will have to use serious stuff to get them out.
Yeah, just like you mean on 3 RBS56, that type of ATGM squad. I would personally, when it comes to these ATGM squads, I really definitely always want them in like affordable ground transports, either BTR 70 or 5-pointer. Some people like to use them in the MTV, but I'm not a fan of using the expensive ones in like expensive helicopters, right? Because it really shuts down the way you can use them. And if you're using these high-end ATGM squads, I think they're for most decks are just these key units for holding down towns, and then you really don't want them to not be able to be reinforced to a town just because AA would shut it down.
Yeah. The Concourse M in MTV was used like 3 years ago. I saw it used kind of often back then, but it was before the times that the Factorio got discovered. Let's say that, because nobody was using Factorio and everybody thought it's useless, right? And that's if you want to use ATGM with the helicopter, you go for Factoria. Concourse M is a different type of unit. It's not of a rushing one. It's just you go with the unit for a prepared position just to really defend. Factoria is very opportunistic unit in many cases. Yeah.
All right, Igla. I mean Igla and Igla N, right? I think I very much. I think you're also in the same boat that I much prefer the base Igla over the Igla N.
I also do prefer base Igla.
They're cheaper and you get more, but also that 5 HE is just usually not really necessary.
For the roles in 1v1s, definitely 5 HE you don't really need, right? Especially if you take them in the Scratch, which is a great transfer for the Igla. Igla ends are justifiable, especially for bigger matchups, team games, where there's a super heavy seat game going on.
But sorry to interrupt you, but I would also argue that in the bigger team games, the availability is gonna be a much bigger deal than it is in 1v1. Let me actually check how many do you lose per current, because I think, for example, for a Stinger,
with the Igla you get 7 and 4, and the base Iglas you get 9 and 7.
Okay, you only use 2, then it's not that big of a deal. Especially with the availability bonus, I think in other decks would be like 8 and 6 or something, or sometimes even a bigger difference. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. But the other thing is also because your other AA on Red 4, your support AA is nearly always gonna have like 7 or even 9 HE.
Yeah, that's a additional topic as is that if you want to combine it, as usually, like build a echelon AA network, definitely the Igla is by far sufficient. As I said, 7 plus 4 is enough.
Unless you're playing against a Thunderbolt. And yeah, but like you said, with the Scratcher, it's just such a good combination. You get like two birds stoned at once. You get the Igla for like a sort of harder shutdown of at least single helicopters, and then the Scratcher to like additionally zone and like a either right next to it to just make it more consistent, or you get 2 areas that you can where you have like would be able to shut down single helicopters, right? So that it's such a good combination. Same with the Grommet and the Grom and the Promet. This Igla and Scratcher is just so much value out of one single card.
Yeah, and it's an amazing combination because you have a cannon that stuns the
Yeah.
stuff, that stuns the helicopter and really zones, so it will not return fire as effectively. And then you have Igla,
To actually.
which is a sort of a missile, Sam, but it actually deals damage a lot.
Yeah. Although to be fair, if the Scratchet hits or some elite or something, it also deals damage.
So deals a lot of damage, yeah.
And it's also very effective. I mean, it doesn't have the range, so you have to be careful, but it can also be quite effective with killing infantry or just stunning ground units as well, right? That's the thing with Spags. Spags deals so much morale damage. They're very good at stunning, but most of the time you just don't see them engaging with the ground units because they're squishy, but in the terms of Scratchet, you see that very often, and you notice it very often how quickly they stun units.
Yeah, they're very nice units. Strela 3. It's the Strela 3.
No,
it's a bad unit.
Let's just skip that. It's a bad unit. Sapiri. Now this is, I mean, in Sapiri 85, but basically always you want the base Sapiri because there's only one reason to get Sapiri, right?
Because it's BTRT.
Yeah, BTRT. Flamer squads are just not on their own, ignoring the transports for now, are just obviously not good enough because these days it's all about like fire support and infantry tanking damage, line infantry tanking damage against most meta decks. So they're just too niche and they're just too helpless against vehicles that the only reason you would buy them really is for the transports, and in this case, there's just this amazing BTRT.
Yeah. 13 frontal armor, medium optics. For 25 points, it's one of the most armor cost efficient units, right? Or like armor per price, like one of the best ones.
For sure. Easily. I mean, yeah, it's just kills infantry, and even against like most IFVs, unless it's like a Marder 2 or has like a missile, it just stuns them.
Yeah.
And against like BVPs that have like one side armor with the splash damage, you will also kill them.
Definitely. And there are not that many transport actually. You know, when you are assaulting a town, like this is a really thing you can really assault the town. Like you just go fast move, unload directly in the town. It's a transport that really gets those Sapari into position where they need to be.
Yeah, I think there's not much more to say about Sapiri. The only basically when you look at Sapiri, all you see is a BTRT. So you essentially get a vehicle tab unit in your infantry tab.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, and Sapiri are just there to sponge damage and spot.
Yeah, and that's why we go for the base Sapiri, because there are 10 men and not 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
For sponging damage.
Speaking of flamethrowers, Spetsnaz. I mean, in 1v1s, there's no real reason to use them unless you know you're going to be playing on ones on Harbor or something.
And even then.
And even then, they're not that great. Although I would assume that if you're good at microing, like hopping them between buildings or something, they can probably still be very, very effective. But
I guess with really superior micro, I think you can. This is one of those squads that can win against the Flushing Jaeger 90s, right? But you really need to out micro the enemy. Really try hard to out micro it.
But yeah, similar to like Sapiri, they're just basic helpless against vehicles. They're low. They're in 35 points as well, and you get only 8 per card for a niche unit that dies easily to do many things. You see. On top of that, in the ranked map pool and generally played 1v1 maps, there's very few towns that are deep where you need dedicated town fighting infantry. So no real reason to use them in 1v1.
Yeah, since the removal of the Wonson Harbor, this unit.
And with Entropic Thunder.
Entropic Thunder, yes. This unit lost its place in the deck.
I think in team games, I've seen the Greyhound still use them every now and then in team games. And I can kind of see why, because in team games you don't need as much. You don't need to cover as many different options against your opponents. So I could see using them similarly to like Navy SEALs or Formosa, putting them in. They're still not going to be amazing, but sometimes when you just have to fight for towns or something, or if you manage to panic the enemy infantry with the Jurgen, then Spetsnaz will just mob up infantry like only Legion 90 really could.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there is but if you do that only like in cheap ground transports, don't buy them with like, especially not in helicopters. But BTR 90 or BTR 88 is probably also not a very good combination, I'd reckon.
Yeah, I think the BTRD maybe, or really sometimes I saw people using it in BTRAT, base BTRAT, just to like really get the price down.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, VDV and VDV90.
Everybody's favorite unit.
VDV90. I mean, let's VDV. There's only really one reason to use VDV, and that's if you're playing airborne.
Yeah.
In that case, elite VDV base ones, they're not like elite Modrits for 15 points, but they're still decent grinders in that sense. But other than that, there's no really good reason to use them because VDV90 just overshadow them in every regard.
Yeah, like the VDV itself for 20 points is not a garbage unit for sure.
Yeah, 875 meter range. That range itself is just very often underestimated.
Yeah, but the problem with this, as you said, is overshadowed, and you always when you finally have those base VDVs in the position, if you took them in the deck, you have them in the position, and they fire the RPG 16D, right? And they usually don't kill anything, and that's all. Every time that's the moment when you really wished you had a vampire, and
Yeah,
you didn't. It wasn't saving those 5 points.
15 P can be nice for like at long ranges with like cheap anti-gems or recoilless rifles so you can sneaky side shots, but at 875 meter range for 20 points, it's just a bit lacking. And in the past, when Eugen still patched the game, there have been many people asking to buff that to 16 AP, and I think it would have been nice. I mean, there still would have been like an unspec, nobody would really take them over VDV90, but it would make them like a tad better and at least allow them to one-shot 2 armored vehicles.
Yeah, at least they will be finally start killing something effectively, because now definitely just a double stack have to be used to at least have a chance against those two frontal armor vehicles.
Yeah, but yeah, the big bad boys, VDV90.
VDV90.
One of the best AT weapons in the game. Depending on situation, I mean, there's Erics and there's Boombar, which are crazy good, but sometimes having just not being guided can also be such a godsend.
Yes.
And again, that 70% accuracy, 24 AP, combined with that really good range is just a monster combination.
I mean, there is nothing to add here. I think this is an excellent AT.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to use them, MTV can sometimes be nice, but generally speaking, I think most people in Discretion and BTRD. I think currently I run one in Discretion, one in the BTRD, just to have like a cheap option as well. They're versatile, they're good, they have great transports. Not really much more to ask for.
I am running personally definitely in Scratch just because the amount of Scratchets, but we will get to this why the Scratchets are so good when we go to the support tab. But the second card I'm running in MTVs to have the helo board infantry. Sometimes you want to get the infantry there fast, and here you have two options: the K29 with the Morskaya Pechota, well, still free, the GRU in MI24D, or the VDV and MTV. And every of those has its
own advantages.
Own advantages, but I like the VDV90 MTV. It's a good card.
Certainly one of the best infantry cards. Period. I would say.
Yeah.
All right, support tab. Let's just cover all the howitzers at once. Gvostika, Akatsia, and the other Akatsia. I think we don't need to beat around the bush. Not particularly worth it.
Yeah, I would love to make them work, but never made it.
I think the only cheap howitzers that are really worth it are like the base M109. And I think one of the cheap North Korean ones is pretty good as well. But outside of that,
Tokchon.
Yeah, I mean, there's several Tokchons. I think the 50-point one is actually pretty decent. But yeah, when it comes to like cheap howitzers, either it's like the 10-inch E ones, or just go for the 10-second aim time ones.
Yes. Which 10-second aim time status I think has a 10-second aim time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean it's a 10-second aim time with the let me pull it up. I think it's an okay fire pattern. It has a salvo length of 5 and a shot reload of How do I do this? Let's put it in here for now. And a short reload of 6 seconds. So it's okay. The biggest thing is just that compared to any other 10-second aim time artillery outside of the stat clones, it has 1 step lower accuracy. Oh yeah, and the beacon 1C as well. So like all the blue 4 M109s, for example, have like 1 additional step accuracy. Which most of the time I think it's not a very good thing, because I think these types you kind of want to snipe with. But yeah. It's okay for what it does. It's not amazing, but it's certainly not garbage either, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a good option that you have when you USSR this such a unit.
Malka and Peon.
Oh, Peon is Peon.
Yeah.
Peon is really not a bad unit, and the Malka is sort of a upgraded Peon.
I think people sometimes, especially back in the forum days, I remember that. I for people who don't know, I really was a Wargame forum warrior. But people really always talk down how garbage a Peon and Malka is compared to M110s. Because especially, like, for example, the Malka and M110A2, same accuracy, same HE. The main difference is you have more rounds and a bit more range, but most people were like, oh, that's useless. But I think people underestimate that sometimes, especially the amount of rounds, because the M110s fire in bursts of 2, right? You have the 35-second aim time, shoot once, reload for 15 seconds, shoot again, and then reload for 30 seconds. The Malkas and Peons, they shoot 4 rounds with 15 seconds in between. So the additional rate of fire you have is actually not to be underestimated.
Yeah, Peons and Malkas are really nice. And Malka, I think it's has a doesn't have a burst of 8.
Malka even has a burst of 8 with 15 seconds reload. Yes, I literally just checked when you were saying that, so that makes it actually even better. Of course, if your opponent is paying attention 24/7 to your base and trying to counter RD, then of course you can't really make use of that. But most of the time people are not, because it's also very often not worth it. If they're trying to snipe your RT, they're doing it with flying something around most of the time, or sneaking something around. But that fire rate that people that really underestimate and neglect, or like think it's not worth it, is actually quite a difference maker.
And I think Malka is this. For 120 points, you'll really have good artillery that if you aim it, even on a tank, even if it's like any tank, right, you will kill it. If it stays
if the tank doesn't move, yes.
If it doesn't move, you will kill it. You will definitely kill it.
But the best tube artillery tank killer is of course the beacon. But I think the biggest disadvantage of the Malka and the Peon is that you just have much better options than Soviets that we'll get to in a bit.
That's Malka is nice, but really the slot limitation, your activation points is your biggest limitation here.
OSA line. I mean, the OSA line is just all around just very solid. Even the base OSA that sometimes people I think underestimate, I really like it.
They are good. All of them are good.
Yeah, also the OSA AK is like your cheap go-to interplane AA. The AKM is your all-rounder, and the base OSA is like your mostly opener helo denier. Sometimes it does jack shit, but sometimes it's just God and also shoots down planes in one shot and whatnot. So
yeah, SC-27M going down to OSA like 50-50 ACM plane.
Yeah,
one shot from first missile. Sometimes it happens.
And the thing you have to keep in mind, or people, not you specifically, but the people watching, with 30 points, right, it vets up very quickly after killing stuff. So the way you gain veterancy in Wargame basically depends on the value of the unit you kill and the value of the unit or your own unit has, or at least it heavily correlates with it. And being only 30 points means that after killing just a few helicopters, it gets on veteran and elite very quickly, and then the accuracy is not to be underestimated, and the crit chance also isn't to be underestimated. I think that's really all we have to say about the OSAs.
I think so.
Tor is like the all-round missile piece, really. It denies helos, denies planes. It outranges longbow, which can be very important, or depending on the way you build your deck or what you're playing against. Good accuracy, 7 HE, which is mostly, I would say, ideal, because when you look at books and hogs, you obviously pay for that 9 HE that you have, but 7 HE is like the sweet spot for me, at least.
Because if you kill it, you kill the thing, you do 10.5 damage.
So still though very rarely used, because one bad thing about it is just the 1 armor. Means that it's pretty vulnerable to artillery and rocket pods and the like. And of course it's on the more expensive side.
Yeah, it's really solid AA.
And just yeah.
If you really wanted those like Swiss knife, or how it's called, Swiss knife.
Oh yeah, the
Swiss
Swiss
knife.
Army knife, yeah.
Swiss Army knife, yeah.
It's really just a jack of all trades when it comes to AA. The book line, I mean, the base book is just not.
Never used. Never saw that unit since ALB.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying 70 points for a unit that is essentially a pure anti-plane unit, then you might as well spend 15 points more to get that. Not just, I mean, the range is nice, but especially that 15% extra accuracy is so crucial.
Yeah, the power step between the books is huge.
But it's just one of the many Red 4 like 80-ish points missile PAA with exactly those kind of sets, like the Nevas, the Cub M4, they all have these exact sets. They're all very solid. There's really not much more to say.
And as you were mentioning, the combination of basic, when we were talking about basic luck, right, that it pairs excellent with the 7HE, 7HE SAMs, right?
On the
books pairs excellently with the scratchets.
Yeah, exactly. The scratchets with the high rate of fire but garbage accuracy still manage to, like, very often just deal just at 1 damage to planes or something, and then the book just finishes it off. That's very, very, very good combination.
I like the combination.
MLRS systems. I mean, a bad one out of the way, the BM-21 Grad is just
super expensive to use, and really doesn't do much.
It doesn't do much. It has the rate of fire is, I think, 0.6 seconds between rockets, so the rate of fire is really bad. It's 75 points. It aims for a long time. It's
expensive. It doesn't do much.
Yeah. Let me actually just briefly compare it to. I mean, okay, compared to the Lars one, it does have like 1 more HE and a bit more suppression, but still, it's just so horrible.
Yeah. But we're going to the good ones, the Uragan.
Or the Uragan. I mean, probably the best MLRS. Although, I mean, there's a Plamen as well that could be considered, but it's certainly one of the most impactful artillery pieces in the game, to say the least.
Just have a unit that sits in your base, and anytime you see a push or want to do a push, just spend some supply, fire those 16 rockets.
You don't even need to spend those 16 rockets, right? Sometimes like half is definitely enough, and sometimes just 4 or 5, depending on where it is or something, is already enough. Just anything in that small area is gonna be panicked and stunned, and if you're a bit lucky, you will deal some good damage as well.
Definitely, it's amazing unit on the defensive, on offensive.
And if you pray to RNGesus, even for sniping some stuff.
Yeah, but for that you either want to upvet it or just drive it to the minimal range. Or use 2 or drive it to minimal range.
Yeah. Which is also nice because it's wheeled, so yeah, it's also a good thing. Alright then, Smirch. I mean, Smirch. It's just it's really the only used cluster MLRS, or frequently used, unless you count the ATACMs, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mars is just underwhelming. The East German BM-127 is underwhelming. And the Yugoslavian one just has 30 seconds aim time. Otherwise, the Yugoslavian one would actually be crazy good. Because you get a 2 per card and then there's only 1 AP less. But 30 seconds aim time is just so...
Yeah, I think the Smirch aims in 10 seconds.
Yep.
It's very, very, very fast in that regard. It's also very expensive to run. All the good artillery is expensive to run, supply wise. Beat the Uragan, Smirch, or the Malka. Right. So, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just kills or finishes off vehicles that are in cover, especially against Blue 4, because most Blue 4 tanks tend to only have 3 top armor, whereas the high-end T-72s nearly all have 4. So that makes it even better. And of course, in ranked, you can't guarantee anything like blue v blue, red v blue. But if you're playing unranked or lobbies, which tend to most of the time be red v blue, you're obviously gonna face a lot more blue 4 tanks with this.
Definitely a nice unit, and especially in the team games. In the ranked, it's
ranked is a bit. I mean, it can still be okay. You certainly had used it to good effect versus me in the past, but it's just
yes.
not nearly as versatile as something like a Eurogan. That is just
Eurogan's just more versatile.
Also, Eurogan kind of lies to you. On the unit card, there's 3 Eurogans when you only get 2 per card. Anyway, to the Strellas.
Yeah, we still have a lot to cover. BRDM 2 Strela M1. What do you say about that, Razzmann?
It in the past it used to be like when I say in the past it's like I guess more than 5 years now that the back in the day when Soviets were meta when it was just about BTR 90 spam and T72 B1s. People use these, or not and I don't know about everyone, but a lot use these for like their cheap AA and base defense. I guess it's still like not the worst unit, but you might as well just get a base Osa. But usually you just have like the scratches for this.
Yeah, this unit is the main use if you really want to do, and I might try to explain why it was used back in the days, because the USSR was really the go-to moto deck with the as you said BTR 90, BTR 80 Ace. It was one of the best autocannons on the wheels, the Jalos and so on. The AMX10s were not as prevalent, and the USSR was played really moto heavy. And this was your cover, which was running with the BTR 80s.
Yeah.
Just supporting him. And you didn't have to micro, just...
Yeah, the perfect stabilizers as well obviously helped as well.
Yeah, you put 2 or 3 of these into the column and your column is safe.
Yeah, and people didn't really abuse rocket pod. I mean, quote unquote, abuse rocket pod healers like they do now. Like, sure, you saw like Lynx H7s and stuff like dropping stuff off, but as aggressive and massed healer usage, you only really saw in healer rushes. In which case, well, you lost. But outside of that, you really your AA was actually consistently hard countering helicopters, which doesn't always happen these days. So you didn't really have to worry about, your opponent just countering your single Strela 1M with 2 rocket bot helicopters or something like that. Wasn't really the case back then.
Yep. Tottenham.
Just, I mean, you like not just in Soviets, but then also in Eastern Bloc Artifacts, you don't really see it very often. But it's just still, despite that, it's just a very solid all-round AA piece that you don't have to micro. There's lots of ammo. It has okay range, no radar, 5 HE, affordable. It's okay, but just not needed. In Soviets at least.
Yeah, it's nice AA still.
But yeah, in Soviets again, your affordable and cheap and non-radar AAs just mostly covered by scratches and iglas. So
in these days, yes.
And yeah. And the only other reason, or the only other non-radar AA piece you would usually see is, if anything, the base OSA, but then it's just mainly for it being wheeled, which the 10M obviously isn't.
Yeah. Shall we go to the headache for the USSR players? The headache for all the USSR
the mortars,
players.
yes. Okay, well, the Potnos it's just a 30-point mortar, right? But I think it have significantly below average ammo.
Well, all the blue 4 has 140.
Except for the British one that has 160.
British one has 160, yeah, this one has 85.
So it's still significantly below average, yeah.
Like almost all have 140, 120, some have 100, and this is like 85 only. So
yeah,
it's one of the, out of all those, like 30-point 3 HE ones, I think this has the lowest amount of ammo.
Maybe, hold on, let me check. Maybe the Bison, the wheeled ones, okay, even the Bison being wheeled, which tend to have less, has 90. The LAV mortar has 100. I don't know why Yushin has such a hate boner for Soviet mortars.
I have no idea why.
And then the Vasilek, I mean, the Vasilek has like a very fancy rate of fire, but I don't know. I'm not sure about the Vasilek. It's just weird. It's fancy and weird.
Vasilek is the best fire starter.
I would know. I
In
would
the forest.
say. I would say the French AMLs are, because if
Are
I'm
even
not
better.
because if I'm not wrong, they actually have a higher chance to start fires for some reason.
Even higher. I think the Vasilek has one of the highest ones combined with the rate of fire. I don't know.
I'm not sure if you can. Oh yeah,
But definitely,
yeah. Sorry, go on.
if you want to start the fire in the forest, these cheap mortars are the way to go.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Oh no, hold on. No. But yeah. If you wanna start a fire, the cheap mortars are certainly the way to go. And you have to keep in mind, which sometimes people forget, smoke rounds can also start fires. They have a significantly lower chance, but smoke rounds can also cause fires in forests, which can be annoying if you like smoking your tank and want to repair it, and then there's a fire that deals like a tiny bit of damage and resets the repair timer. So be aware of that.
Nona and Nona SVK. I think they are too, like really, even though they are called the same, they are significantly different in the way I would use them.
Or you would use the Nono SVK as a wheeled tank killer with its 5 heat rounds?
Definitely. Yeah. No, actually, like the Nona SVK has a very accurate gun. In a double stack, you pay. It's kind of pricey and it's expensive to run, but it's excellent fire support. Actually, like one of the best indirects you can get to support your infantries.
Same accuracy as a VPN. But I want to briefly check on the unit card. The VPN has a higher rate of fire, but I don't know if this is just because it has more ammo.
I think the salvo is longer.
Or if the salvo is
The different salvo.
So-
I think that the SVK has a free salvo length. I don't know what's about the reload times.
So this is interesting. For one, yes, the salvo length is different. No, the salvo length is the same. Shot reload is the same. Salvo reload is longer for the SVK. But the Nona SVK also aims for 8 seconds, the VPM for 6 seconds. Which is faster than the other 5HE mortars, which have 8 seconds as well. So I guess that's
just French bias.
Yep,
French
as typical as it always is the case in the forums. It's French bias.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have with the Nonas is actually the really low ammo count.
Oh yeah. I mean that's really the case with all the mortars, even the Vasilek, which for 45 points only 100 rounds at that range as well. It's just the biggest issue with those mortars.
Yeah, so with mortar are just expensive to run for when you want to resupply them. It's just so expensive.
Yeah. Anyway, on to the Buratino.
Even the better fire starter than the Vasilek.
That thing has been the bane of so many people and the cause of so many nerf please Eugen threads on the forums. And it's been nerfed many times. Do you remember? It used to be 2 per card at 2 cards in the vehicle tab with 10 seconds aim time. That thing was... Imagine that now. I mean, to be fair, now it's really not seen that very often, at least on 1v1s, because the Eurogun is just so much more versatile. But even still, it's still a good unit.
Yeah.
The main issue is just that in and team games, you for one know the map you play beforehand, and secondly, you usually have just one part of the front line for you, and then it's much easier to buy the Buratino and have to travel to the front line, because in a 1v1, especially on bigger maps, if you suddenly have to shift front lines, you would have to move the Buratino over the whole map for it to use again, right? And that's why one of the reasons why the Eurogun is just so much more useful. But in team games, the Buratino still very much rivals the Eurogun, because with while the short range means, of course, you have to be close to the front line, it can also be very strong in the sense that once you fire, the rockets are going to impact like a few seconds later, meaning that your opponent has no chance to react to it at all.
Yeah.
And it leaves fire behind. It deals so much damage with, if you want to do a full salvo with 30 rockets. It is really...
everything there. it's more powerful for sure, but as you said, it has a lower presence on the battlefield, and it's not viable in the 1v1. Just it's usually not viable, right? And with the meta being developed and not that many grinds happening, right? And people being able to effectively learn to switch flanks left and right, or just don't grind at all. Yeah, it's very expensive to field the Buratino, and very difficult to field the Buratino and to get into the front line, prepare such a huge push, right, and annihilate, then push. Uragan is much more versatile in this regard, but in team games, as you said, it's a different story.
All right then, the Ural, the wheeled scratchet essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in and of itself, it's really not that horrible. Although the fact that it has no armor and 5 HP means that as base defense, it can struggle by just being killed so easily. But it's still the same kind of effective gun. Oh, and it has no stabilizer. The Scratchet has a stabilizer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Scratchet has 5% stabilizer, and it has twice the ammo.
Yeah. So essentially, the Soviets were doing technical before it was cool, right? The URLZ is the technical from the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah, and I just realized there's no guy on the back there, and there's also no guy driving it. What the hell? Hold up, is this a bug on my? No, there's really no guy driving it.
I also don't have anyone.
What about the other Urals in this game? Okay, this one you can't look into. This one you also can't look into. Okay, I guess the old models are from European Escalation where the glass isn't see-through. But yeah, there's no guy driving it and no guy on the gun. Okay then, but yeah, with even
space tech,
yeah,
technical.
I mean even if you had the space or like could afford to put it in with the crash heads, there's just no reason to use it. And then the big specs, yeah.
The biggest problem of the Ural is that like also it takes a super important slots, right?
Yeah.
It disqualifies it right away. There is so many good stuff to take in the support slot.
It supports it in general, and then on top of that, in Soviet support, we have just so much good artillery to choose from.
Yeah. The big specs, as you said.
The big specs, the Shilka and Biryusar, they're pained, crippled by the burst length.
200 rounds or how many?
Let me see. So the Shilka, it can fire 15 rounds and then has to reload for 5 seconds. And the Biryusar can also fire for 15 rounds. But those 15 rounds are fired with a shot interval of 0.2 seconds. And the only other guns that have that ready to fire are the Tunguskas, right? The Gepards and such have 0.4 seconds. Most good specs have like 0.4. Only one or two, the North Korean spec has 0.3. But 0.2, at least for a near infinite burst length, meaning just firing until you're basically empty, is only really found in the Tunguska.
Yeah, so these are like Shilka and Biryusar. They're nice, but sometimes they lack range, and sometimes they lack as you said, the salvo length.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like if a plane flies over them, they deal massive damage. Against planes, they're actually pretty good because planes don't really fly over them for a long time, so you don't only get a few shots off. And in that case, the burst length doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. So in that case, they're actually pretty good. But it's just against helicopters. You basically kill one helicopter and then you have to reload, and then you just if there's a second helicopter, you're basically dead.
Yeah. Oh, because the range against helicopters is sort of holding it down as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see this unit being very, very useful still. It's not a bad unit on its own.
Yeah. Again, like I said, they're mostly good against planes, and so it's just also part of like the meta with like lots of like people just overloading AA with helicopters, and it is even worse when you can not even from the get go shoot 2 helicopters within 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then there's the Tunguskas,
the base one and the super one.
With the only difference, of course, being the missile. 15 extra accuracy, and a good bit of range.
Yeah, expensive, very expensive AA pieces.
Yeah, expensive but strong. A bit squishy. They have 2 front armor, which is good, but only one side. But their gun just shreds stuff left and right.
It's the best spec gun if you don't consider automatic.
Yeah, I was just about to say, except for the automatic, yeah. And the missile is no joke as well. The base one, of course, is a bit inconsistent, but 7 HE on a non-radar missile, that is very rare. I mean, there's the base also, and then there's the Never M1T, of course. And I guess the non-radar Hawks as well, but it's really it.
Yeah. And Tunguska basically has better stats than Crotal on
the missiles, yeah.
Missile, yeah.
And of course, I believe you fire all 8 missiles with a reload time of 1 second in between.
Yes.
Which got fixed or changed only fairly late into Wargame's patch life cycle, I guess you could call it. For a long time, I believe it had I think it might have been 5 seconds between each individual missile, which was kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But
now it's really nice, useful piece.
Oh, and of course, for a long time it was the Tunguska M specifically, only the Tunguska M was able to shoot through forests at helicopters.
Yeah, good old times.
But for people who don't know, that it couldn't spot helicopters through forests, but forests, of course, block line of sight from planes between helicopters and AA, not planes, of course. But if you had a different unit spotting a helicopter, the Tunguska would just somehow, for some reason, because I don't know why Eugen managed to do that or how, just shoot at it anyway, and the helicopter couldn't shoot back, of course, let alone spot it. So that was very weird, and not discovered for a quite long time, or at least not publicly known for a very long time.
Maybe it should have been a feature for a Tor. Actually,
maybe
this capability, because the vertical launch.
Yeah, certainly would be interesting, though. Well, it would be one way to somewhat fix helicopter spam.
Yeah, you can just get Tor. Put it deep into the forest, and yeah, you're done.
Yeah. All right, then let's go over to tanks.
Oh, Jesus.
Probably yeah.
The biggest tank tab, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Let's see. USA has decent. Yeah, I don't think there's any deck that can rival it. But also a lot of useless tanks.
Definitely.
I mean, T-34. It's heat, only 6 RPM. 3 front armor and the 50 cal MG isn't really too bad. And honestly, 40% accuracy is, for a 50-point tank, not bad either, but just heat, low RPM, and bad optics, which is even worse than poor optics.
It's no longer stabilized and no longer 10 points. Yes. So no more cloud rushes.
There's just really no use for this. Not even in other decks, but in Soviets even less so, because if you want cheap fire support or something, you get BTRTs or something like that, and even though it's more expensive, it's definitely worth more than 3 T-34s, I'd say.
It really is.
PT90.
Never saw that unit.
Same.
Feel it.
Just
terrible.
Ignored. BMP685 is interesting though. Definitely have seen that one. Not these days anymore, but in the past, not that rarely.
Yeah, it's a very fancy unit.
It's like some weird airborne prototype or something, right?
I think so.
Hold on a second. What is this? It's a 1975 tank with 65% accuracy. First of all, that 75 and 65% accuracy. Second of all, a fucking Red 4 unit with that high accuracy that isn't a super heavy, and not DLC. I was looking at tanks because I did a deck game recently with Amex with France, or Euroco, but only French units except for mortar. And I had the Amex 30B, which for 40 points had 65% accuracy at 1982. And I was actually kind of stunned at that accuracy for that cheap price and at relatively early introduction date. But now I see the fucking BMP 685 with 65% accuracy in that year. And then on Red 4, that Eugen has Eugen always gives garbage accuracy unless it's DLC.
Well, I think I should try to use this unit a bit more, like test it out. Now I don't know what to say about it.
I mean,
Looks
it's
good on
really not
paper.
horrible. It has medium optics, 5 armor, 10 RPM auto. Yes, auto loader. Probably like in a similar thing to a T-72A in terms of like at flank or like light flanks, dealing with IVs or something like that.
Maybe. I don't know. I need to test it out. I have nothing to comment. Was using it 3 years ago. Then I stopped using it. I don't remember why. But might try it out. Maybe just because of the low frontal armor.
Yes, I think ultimately though you're gonna really suffer against aim accents. I mean, what doesn't? But
yeah, you get outclassed in terms of firepower.
But still though, like medium optics, 5 front armor for 30 points is pretty nice. And then a very consistent gun, not the best AP, and only 1900-meter range.
I think the range is the biggest problem for this unit.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think 2100-meter range and would be very significant for it. But I mean, yeah, it might not really be that bad.
Yeah, need to test it out. I'm also not sure how well it would fare against like something like Marder 2.
Marder 2 would probably eat it up.
Yeah.
Unless if the Marder 2 is on attack move and engages it at max range, you would possibly be. I mean, you're auto-loaded, so losing veterancy isn't that big of a deal, and with your high base accuracy, you're gonna hit more. So maybe at maximum range, if it's standing still the Marder 2 for some reason, you'd be fine, but outside of that, you're probably gonna lose.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's go on.
Let's go. We have a lot to cover.
Yeah, still. T55 line. The T55A is probably the best one out of all of these.
Yeah, I would say so. It's the cheapest one, and the gun is okay.
It's an okay cheap tank to spam. 50 cal, 8 RPM, acceptable speed. 50 kmh is, I think, just on the verge of being good enough. Unfortunately, only bad optics, which I think sometimes people underestimate how, I wouldn't say important, but useful it is that your cheap stuff has at least poor optics. But I think the biggest downside is with the 7 armor, you do get one shot by spikes.
Yeah. Overall, I think, but also I think the T55 it doesn't have really place in the USSR.
Oh, that as well.
In general, like there are better options overall, like in terms of the lines that we get to.
I think in terms of like very, very cheap tanks, there's no reason to use it simply because of PTRT for the same thing, like cheap high armor and infantry damage. The other T55s, I don't think we need to talk much about them. The Bastion, for such a price, is just not quite good enough. I think if you could get a Bastion like a 30 or 40 point carrier, there might be a reason to. But other than that,
I mean, 55 and 60 points, it's expensive. Just expensive.
And not even very, very consistent. And then the general bad thing, the general thing with the T55s is usually they lack range and stabilizers. And they don't have the forage either that most other Red 4 tanks have.
Yeah, usually playing these tanks feels like you're throwing money out. Throwing the points out. Spending them inefficiently.
There's like one really good T55, and that's the Finnish Recon one, and that's really it. I mean, maybe there's the Eggman one. Anyway, T62s.
They're cheaper. Well, they have 6 rate of fire, right? So they are even cheaper than the T55A, but the 6 rate of fire makes them.
Yeah.
Well, what you can do, just be
there's a memes you can do running them in armor or something and spamming the 45.1 to like maximum range 15 AP or something, but they're also slow.
Yeah.
And
the 40k MH is oversight on the T62 M1 and M. It should be 50.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's like they got like an additional armor or something, and then heavier, and then the MV1 got also an additional engine, so that brought it back to 50. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know, but I think it should be 50.
I mean, even though, but it really makes them significantly better, to be fair.
I haven't seen them used very effectively.
But
Sometimes the T62 MV1 was used as a ATGM
just
carrier.
the long range ATGM.
Because Arcan is really a decent.
It's a But then again, most of the time it's supposed to really only in armored, because otherwise you would just see the BMP3 as the Arcan carrier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to some actual decent tanks and go to the T64s. We were just actually just yesterday briefly talking about the T64A that you never used.
I never tried it.
I mean, it's just I think it's fine. I don't think it's particularly amazing. Like 9 RPM autoloaded, 4 AG. It's pretty good for 50 points. It has like acceptable AP and armor, but it's just that these days you would think it's a forest tank, but then you go into a forest and just get one shot by an Eric's, or like double tapped by other infantry. And then against, I think on lighter flanks, it just gets crippled by not having medium optics.
Yeah, usually like for a lighter flank, you go for T72A. That's it, because it's for the role of a light flank tank. The medium optics and those additional to armor, which will help you massively to survive, is the way to go. So T64A might be. I always imagine like when you are supporting some push on the on a town, right? When you are advancing with your infantry on tank and you need a fire support tank. That's the T64A for you, but it's not as universal. This is the role where it's better than the other tanks, but in all the others, it's just worse.
Yeah, and then the T64B.
Awkwardly priced tank, I think.
It's awkwardly priced, and it's like I mean, it's compared to a T80, right? You have the same armor, you have the same AP, you have the same rate of fire, but you lack that. You lose the crucial extra 175 meter range, which is a bit of accuracy that you would get in close range, and most importantly, one more AP. So it's not really, I mean, for the T80, maybe not for the T64B, but for the T80, you don't really care about range, but it's more about the AP you would lose. But for T64B, which has decent accuracy, the range is also a thing. And then you also pay like 5 points more compared to T80. Yeah. And I mean, the Cobra, I think it's not even that horrible, which is, it's not the Agona, but I think on like such a somewhat affordable tank, it's not to be underestimated. But it's just, there's no real role for it.
No, but like there is no role.
I don't even know if it's really overpriced or under, or like not underpriced for sure, but it might be like finely priced, but it's just awkward.
Yeah. At 65 points, it would be like one of the go-to tanks, right? For sure. Just
possibly,
but
yeah.
Strange tanks. Strange tank.
T64BM a bit less strange. Now we're getting into the T64s that are like somewhat commonly seen. That thing used to be, for like one patch, really OP. Do you remember that?
I remember it was 90 points, I think. Right?
Yeah, 90 points, and then everyone spammed it like there was no tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's essentially stat-wise like a 2A1, but auto-loaded, and you get the Cobra. You use a bit of accuracy and stuff. So kind of similar to that. I.e., okay, but like not groundbreaking.
Yeah, it's decent tank, decent medium tank. The most significant thing is that it has 9 rate of fire, right? For the
9 RPM auto-loaded. It's just really good.
Yeah, with this 18 penetration, it's nice. Also, it's fast. Again, it's 70 kmh.
And you get the medium optics, but like the T64 line as well, not the greatest top armor either. Again, not the biggest deal these days, but in the past, in long past, before Israel, when laser guided bombs are a bit nerfed, definitely something that you would consider. Although then again, these days you also see a bit more cluster planes depending on the deck you play against, so it's still something to like keep at the back of your head at times, I guess. Anyway, T-64 BV1, essentially a red for M1A1 Abrams.
With less accuracy, 10, I think 10% less accuracy, right? Or only is it only 5?
I think let me check. It is 10 less accuracy and 15 less stabilizer. You get 1 more side armor. You lose the 7.62 millimeter MG. You're smaller a bit. You have more autonomy. You're autoloaded, of course, and a 4HE. I mean, just side grades for the most part. You're obviously significantly worse at long ranges due to the accuracy, but at close range with the autoloader.
I don't overall never use this tank. I personally,
Yeah.
I almost never saw it.
It's not bad. Like the M1A1 is also not really bad, just in a weird role because you don't like for a higher price you don't really counter like A4As that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2A1s or stuff like that. So why pay that price when you're not really countering them and just get shit on by more expensive by the really heavy tanks or super heavies? So that's just awkward. Not bad, just awkward.
Yeah, T-64BB, a bit different story, right?
I think this is probably the best T-64.
I totally agree.
It's essentially like just like the BV1 is like the Red 4 M1A1. The T-64BV is like the Soviet M2 Wilk. Just again, just a bit better. You lose 1 top armor and 1 side armor. Especially the top armor is, I think, a bit is noticeable. You're a bit faster. You have a bit better stabilizer, but you still get 20 AP, the same armor, and you get that pretty decent ATGM for free.
This ATGM is really decent.
Sometimes I actually forget that it has 22 AP. I don't know why I was thinking it had 20 AP. It's basically like a stabilized sphere. Even more accuracy, actually.
Yeah. I don't know about the speeds, but how fast it flies. But yeah, this is a good tank, and many people use it to quite extent. Sometimes, but it has if you are using it as your go-to tanks, it has some problems like the 26 AP, right? It's not survivable enough against 26 AP.
Yeah,
it's get double tapped, and that's like the biggest problem of this tank, I think. If there would be no ATGM Millennium 3s and peace shrines, right, so this tank would be killing it. But
it's solid. It's just solid, but sometimes when you're playing, it's like peace shrines, most notably peace shrines, and I guess thunderbolts as well. The armor can be a bit lacking, but I think it's still okay because at least you're not like paying an additional 5 or even 10 points for like 18 armor. Because that is even worse, because that still just gets double tapped by 26 AP, so you need at least 19 armor for those you don't know. But actually, I mean, at least you don't. I mean, at the same time, at 16 armor, you would get one shot by 30 AP, so at 17 you don't. So it's like essentially like a medium between not getting one shot by 30 AP, but then getting double tapped by not yet, but double tapped by 26 AP. There we go. So it's a heavy medium, right? It's okay, but it does better against certain decks and worse against others, like many units. But especially, I think in tanks, it's a bit rarer to see these matchups being kind of important. But in this case, it sort of is.
I think it has even a lower survival chance against the peace shrine than it has to Syria. If you think so, like Syria has a lower veterancy than the peace shrine as well. And
true.
I think
Oh yeah. I mean, but then of course, this is all of course always assuming you're at full HP, right? So that's something people have to keep in mind. Okay, now on to the most commonly seen tanks. In general, T-72s.
The Apocalypse tanks. If the Apocalypse would ever start, the T-72s would be mass produced.
Oh, hold on 1 second. The Agona is a tad slower than the Sphere. They have the same starting speed of 1000, but the Agona has a maximum speed of also 1000 and the Sphere of 1200. So not that big of a deal, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right, base T-72.
Not good enough. Just not good enough to put in the deck.
Yeah.
It's shared in many other decks. It's not good enough, especially when you have exceptional T-72A, right? For in comparison to all the others.
Oh yeah. It's just actually compared to the T64A, right? The T64A already we considered like it's not particularly good, but like kind of passable. But if you compare to the T72, it makes the T72 look even worse, right? You lose 2 RPM and a step of range for 5.3, but it's actually really bad. So yeah, it's just there's just no real role for it, at least not in USSR. If you want like a the T72 just does the same but better. And more, much more.
Yeah, T72A survives a lot more. Most importantly, T72A medium optics, like if you don't take the BMP 685, which we talked in the beginning about, into consideration the cheapest medium optics you can get on a tank, right?
Well, there's the T62M1 for 45 points, but let's put it this way.
Okay.
The cheapest medium optics you can get on a good tank.
Yeah, that is mobile, right? Because 40 kmh terrible 60 is possible.
Yeah,
it's really something we can work with.
And so you get decent accuracy for 55 points as well. You get decent range, 4G. You survive any kinetic shot in forest at full HP. You survive a peace run or 26 AP heat. For 55 points, it's just
a really good tank.
Yeah.
And it's cheap. Most importantly, it's cheap. Like 55 points for this package. Because there are other alternatives, right? But it's more than 5 points better than T64A. And it's comparable to the T80 in terms of like how useful it is. Which T80 we will get to it, right? But it's a very useful tank. T72A has a very stable place in my decks.
And in your heart, I would hope.
And in my heart as well, of course.
T72B1 used to be, again, long time ago, around the same time when Soviets was meta with the Buratino and the BTR-90s, the go-to medium tank. I think at that time I believe that T72B also was 95 points. I believe it got buffed at some point. So. It's just an okay medium. 8 RPM is a bit annoying given that all other medium tanks that you see these days have 9 RPM.
Yeah.
But
it's just I think a bit more armored to Wilk M1, right? And it's faster. It has lower RPM, and that's it. It's a good tank, but especially in here,
the armor is the same, but the Wilk has 1 more side armor. But it's 10 kmh faster and has 10% more stabilizer.
Okay.
It's okay, but of course, the other thing is just that for 5 points more, getting a free sphere is just too good of a deal to pass up.
Free sphere on such a cheap tank.
Well, free sphere, you lose 4 rounds of your main gun.
Yeah. So you actually pay for it somehow. But still, T72B is an excellent tank.
And then, of course, keep in mind that if your opponent isn't paying attention and like retreating that tank, especially in forests, right? After you shoot your main gun, you turn it off, and then you immediately shoot with the missile without having to reload. Can be quite strong against other medium tanks. Against super heavies, it's not going to help too much, dealing 1 damage, 1.5 if they have 21 armor. But against medium tanks, very useful. The 22 AP is quite scary.
Yes, especially like against his peers, 22 AP is scary, for sure.
All right then, the other T72Bs, OBR-87.
Also, I would like to say to add about Sphere. The great thing is it counters tow carriers.
Right?
Bradleys, especially like you really with the other tanks. If you meet the M2 Bradley, usually you're in troubles, right? With T72B, you can go and try to kill it.
But also, you don't really see Bradleys that often. And that is not just a pun on the Recon Bradleys having stealth and thus being invisible, but like when you're playing against USA or Blue Mac, you don't see them very often these days. You used to see, especially the Recon Bradley, all the. I mean, if you see them, they were run all the time back in the day.
I would generalize it against any total carrier.
But you don't see total carriers in general very often, do you?
I
mean, maybe you use them, but I see them pretty rarely.
That is also true. Anyway, if you see it, you
But
have
I
an
guess,
advantage.
I mean, IFVs and ATGM carriers in general, right? BMP2 with the Coggers M, maybe some Milan 2 carriers if you're playing against like Phenor with his West German mech decks. You know, that type of stuff.
I mean, you have an advantage against other tanks, and when you face the the ATGM carriers.
Yeah.
Point made. OBR 87.
Kind of sad, as we were mentioning the 18 armor, you do get just the highest armor that you still get double tap by 26 AP. That is, again, most notably Peace Shrine and A10, which are among the most popular blue 4 decks that you encounter.
Yeah. Or a 10, or a also 90-point Peace Pheasant, which has 4 of those.
Yeah. Or the MLU, the Danish one, or the Barak by Israel, or even the Orao used by Yugoslavia.
There's a lot of them. But imagine losing 2 OBR 987 to 1 90-point plane.
That's
oof.
Although I have to say, the OBR 87 does carry a special place in my heart, because these days, not of course, haven't done it in a long time, but in the past, I used to run Soviet Armored, and then in team games, just run around with 4 stacks of them on elite. Fun times. I mean, if like tank on tank, they're fine.
Yes.
If you take the heat, the missiles and stuff out of the equation for a second there. Tank on tank, they're fine, and like the AP and armor you pay and the RPM, they have good speed, good side and top armor and stuff, which doesn't always matter, but sometimes does in some new scenarios. So in that case, it's just an all-around okay tank. It's not amazing, but it's just
if you don't consider those 26 AP, which is like the only problem that these tanks have, this and accuracy, right? But accuracy is compensated by being it elite in the or
armored
veteran
and
the
having
deck.
the sphere and stuff, for ATGM trick that can kind of make up for it as well.
These are great tank. Just in current meta, there's too much 26 AP.
Yeah,
heat flying around.
And the OBR 89 that somehow lost all its ERA on the model. I a bit off topic, but I heard that like the OBRs should, or the 89 should technically look like the BU does, but I don't know. Anyway, it's basically 2 armor, and I mean it's 2 AP, 2 armor, 2 front, 1 side, and 1 rear armor for 30 points. That's literally all this.
Yeah, but we got to for a critical step,
It's kind of like the same thing, except this case it doesn't really suck against non-tank tank killers. Right? It's still solid for the price against other tanks. It doesn't really have like any horrible armor value that it gets hard it gets hard counted or something. Yeah.
It's like if the closest comparison, it would be the HA Abrams, right? In terms of the armor and AP values. Just this one is super inaccurate. It's a bit more mobile, a bit more all-around armor. Like the side armor, I think has this one is higher, and you have the ATGM and the lower
and the autonomy. Sometimes, like the Abramses, sometimes really struggle with the autonomy. I mean, it doesn't really matter as much for the cheaper ones, but I think if you're using the expensive ones and maneuver them a lot, then the autonomy can certainly be a bit annoying.
Yeah.
Something that's always nice about all the D72s is just that you virtually never run out of fuel. You never have to worry about that.
So let's go to the best unit.
The big boy. I mean, it's just a super heavy. It's one of the better ones, but like, it's still a super heavy. Even the burst super heavy is a super heavy, and that's good enough, really.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit. It's no.
It's on the slower end. At this, I mean, the slowest super heavy is a Challenger 2 with 60, but even in a vacuum, 65 is still fine. It is not RPM autoloaded. It has. No. It doesn't have the best stabilizer, but good accuracy. It has to stabilize ATGM. It's just, I mean.
And on this tier of a tank, like the sphere is almost obsolete, right? With the
in a certain sense, yeah. I mean, if you're dealing with other super heavies, then the sphere doesn't do much. But it's still kind of nice to have, of course, if the opponent is, if you're playing as a mech deck or something where in which case you might not even want to call it out in the first place. But or if you're just dealing with IFVs or medium tanks or something, there are certainly some situations where the sphere can be nice. But it's just more like a nice thing to have. Like without the sphere, it would be like 170, and I think in that case you'll be like, sure, I'll pay 5 points for a sphere essentially, and it's a good deal. But most of the time on the super heavy, not very impactful.
Yes. So the stylish line, T80.
The fancy and the T80. The T80 looks so weird. I'm pretty sure something is wrong with the model. It looks way too. The hull looks just a bit too tall.
Yeah, I mean the models are horrible.
Horrible, crazy models.
I really don't like the models, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
I mean, in all fairness, though, given that it's an RTS and you virtually never looked that far, and they're still pretty on average, and given at what range you play the game as, it's still kind of detailed in that sense. Anyway, but T80 is like the forest brawl tank,
T80,
or DOG forest brawl tank before the 84A was a thing.
If you want to run Red 4 armored or Soviet armored, this tank is a beast.
This is your bread and butter. It trades like perfect, essentially quote unquote perfect, like for the price, perfect RPM and armor value, as well as like range and AP, of course, but it's most notably armor and AP for like accuracy and stabilizer. And RPM and armor is exactly what you want in force fighting, and stabilizer and accuracy is really not what you want. So that's as good as it can get.
Yeah. As an all-rounder, it just misses the optics, but
again, force okay. not a deal, and you have good enough speed. I think 75 or even 80 would, of course, be a bit preferable, but 70 is really still on a pretty good side.
Yeah. Super potent tank.
Yeah, very much so. There's not much more to say. I mean, even in Ansberg, it can be fine, or it is fine still. Of course, it can't really spot for itself, so it doesn't really fill the same role as many roles as a T72A can, but still like very decent, and even all around, and just like shooting at being fire support, killing IVs and such. You just need to have something to spot for it.
Yeah. The ATB.
The ATB. I think it's.
What's your take on it?
I think it's a bit underrated. I don't think it's particularly bad. It's just an awkward. I think it's kind of similar to the T64B, that it's not really inherently bad. It's just that in such a spot stat-wise that there's no real place for it. I think it's still okay for a sec. I think if it had medium optics, it would be actually good.
Tank.
Pretty good tank.
If this has medium optics, it would be a great tank, honestly. It only really at this price range, it's already hindered by a lack of the optics.
Part 2. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
the BV.
Yeah, the BV is just
never used and super awkward.
Hold on, no. Nande used it when he did his fancy Red 4 armor decks, but only used T80 line. But yeah, it's T80 BV is just. I mean, at that point, just use the T64 BV. Really, like the 2 armor for 10 points is really nice to have, and also, of course, they're going on with a significantly better missile. Really not much more to say. A bit fancy looking with its ERA. But yeah, that's really about it. T80A, I think this is, I wouldn't say controversial tank, but I think there's people who think, oh, this is so great, and then there's people who think like, oh, this is garbage, and there's like a no in between. I'm part of the it's garbage part.
I thought so. It used to be great potential with the Reflex. Reflex is a powerful missile.
Reflex is powerful, but it doesn't have medium optics, which sure you could argue, well, given it's a rather expensive tank, you want it to be supported at all times. But I feel that very frequently, maybe not so much in team games, but even then it's a low curse. But especially in 1v1s, it actually happens very frequently that even if your tank's supported by stuff with medium or good or very good optics, unless it's like they're like right next to each other, there's pretty frequently occasions where they're just so cut off that from the angle you're getting shot at, your supporting unit doesn't have line of sight and thus can't spot, and your tank with poor optics just gets shit on because it has poor optics.
Yeah.
And it happens way too frequently.
If this had medium optics, it would be really good.
It would have very much, but it does have this horrible 16 armor.
Which would be like the same as the T-64BM, just with better missile, right?
It's just yeah, but you can't. Yes, but also just the poor optics is just. Poor
optics is holding this thing back.
And then
but if you can work around it, this thing can be powerful.
Yeah.
On the mud fight,
yeah,
especially.
Okay, I mean, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, it's, with 18 hour and 16 MP for the same price and it's better missile as BM. I guess saying it's garbage is exaggerating a bit, but it's also like even worse accuracy than the BM or stabilizer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just yeah. All right, T80U, the bane of European escalation players. And I guess Island Battle as well, but I think most notably European escalation is when it was really a big deal. It's yeah.
This tank is awesome. I really like it. It's super fast. It's okay. It's getting already a bit pricey. For 150 points, you are usually outclassed in terms of the raw stats, like the AP and front armor. Usually, right? At this price, you get better tanks.
Yeah, like the M1 A1 HA for 140 has the same price, same armor, same AP, and same RPM. But
and better accuracy.
Yes, although 16-50% for Red 4 standards is pretty good. But of course, you get the reflex, and again, the 75 km speed is so good. But like the Abrams, the autonomy can be the downfall at times when you don't pay attention to it, and suddenly you're stranded in the open with nowhere to run, literally.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful tank for sure, but sometimes it just feels like going for the OBR89 just because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
it's better way to do.
It feels like,
and also it's more autonomous. Like don't have to babysit it as much as the ATU.
Similar to some other tanks, it's just in an odd spot where it just gets wrecked by super heavies and doesn't really efficiently counter like the heavies that are just below it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So usually you're always in a position when you want to get TATU, just get a TATUM.
Mm-hmm. Which
is already a super heavy. Plus you get plus 3 AP, plus one armor,
and you're
even more
faster,
speed and even better ATGM. So
the best tank based ATGM, I think, right? I think it's the only one with 24 AP. I think Israel also has 22, right? Yeah, Israel has 22. Yes. Although Israel ones with the same range has 5% more accuracy and stabilizer. The what was it called again? The Lahat.
Yeah.
But
yes.
Yeah, if you're playing 1v1, it's usually a choice between BU and UM if you're running super heavy. On the one hand, the speed kind of makes the UM more survivable because you can run into cover faster, but of course you have lower armor all around. You have a bit more stabilizer and of course a better ATGM. I personally still prefer the BU, but I mean in team games you probably run both. And then it's more really up to preference.
It's really up to preference. I run the UM, but I'm not the one using the super heavies the most.
But he's also a Soviet noob, so he doesn't know what he's doing.
Finally, we got through the tank tab.
Yeah, alright, Recon tab.
Exceptional optic.
VLearn says hello.
Yeah, love it of the.
Yeah,
using BRM 1K to outspot the enemy in the forest.
Don't use this unit. I mean, there is a cut of meme because for those people who don't know, exceptional optics actually can spot further through forests. Like there's for basically any other unit that doesn't have exceptional optics. There's like the hard cap of 350 20.
meters landing.
I don't think it's quite 150. Quite 350. I think it's a bit lower. But like, let's
Okay.
just say 350 meter range in a forest that you just simply can't spot further. Unless you have exceptional optics, and you actually can spot a tad further. I don't know how much, but I don't know, like 100 meters maybe, and also shoot at that range. But when are you gonna use this? How are you gonna use it? You have a fucking Grom with that does like to infantry, it does like what 0.8 damage if you hit. So yeah, it's just don't use this unit. You pay 50 points for something. In many times you can't make proper use of the exceptional optics just because of the ranges. So very good optics most of the time will spot the same. Plus you only have, compared to infantry, which are basically the prime ground unit spotters, you have worse stealth, meaning that not only do you in general just get detected easier, it means you most of the time cannot go as close to the enemy front line, meaning that the advantage you have by better optics is kind of negated by the fact that most of the time you have to be further back. And then coupled with the fact that you're more expensive, you basically get one shot by anything that shoots at you, and you're like, what, 4 per card? Or 5 in Soviets, maybe? Just do not use ground-based exceptional optic units in general, but especially not these horrible ones that are 50 points with a gun that is virtually useless and basically die to anything. Anything else to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay.
To helicopters.
Helicopters. I mean, Mi2 is just your
Mi2.
It's fine. Mi8R.
Never wasn't used since ALB.
Yeah, just if you're paying for exceptional helicopter optics, then you might as well get one that is faster and can actually shoot at something.
Yeah.
So Mi24K and K52.
Always a dilemma which one to pick. Right? You usually, sometimes you even run both.
No, that's spicy.
That's spicy a bit, but yes, usually you are opting. K52 is more standard thing to do because it's like versatile and is a seat.
I mean,
right?
Versatile in the sense that it's basically an anti-air helicopter. But it's basically a glorified ninja most of the time.
Yes. But it also can seat, right?
I mean, the seat can certainly be sometimes useful, especially if you're playing against something like Longitude or Scandi that mostly rely on radar array, at least for dealing with helicopters. But at the same time, you also have to be very careful. Sometimes opponents might bait you with a seat, and you think, they turned on their radar array. I'm gonna kill it, and then they just drive towards you, bait you, turn off while you're shooting, turn on again, and then you're empty. You're still standing there, and then they just kill you. Or stuff like that. So you have to be really careful. It's best used when you're doing it like a ground attack, when your opponent can't afford to really pay attention to the radar micro, or doing an air assault or something like that. But generally speaking, against good opponents, you won't be lucky at just randomly sniping or randomly actively trying to snipe with the seed missiles.
Yeah, usually your opponents are gonna be good enough to.
And one thing to keep in mind with the gun on the K52, just like the Aquila, it's fixed on the hull. You can see it there on the side, meaning that the whole helicopter has to turn for it to shoot, meaning that in practice it takes quite a long time for it to aim, and firing on the move is virtually impossible.
Yes, so this unit is used only for the E-glass, exceptional optics, and sometimes seat. Right.
Yeah,
but it's really nice. Also, the stealth kind of helps it a bit.
Stealth can be pretty nice, although obviously it's not really a big of a deal when it's in reality very rarely an actual threat to ground units.
That's true. But Mi24K is a threat to ground units, especially the infantry. The Mi24K is the best helicopter to deal with sneaking infantry. There's nothing as good dealing with sneaking infantry as this thing.
The Yak B is really quite crucial when infantry is sneaking through forests, because the stuff like Tigers can obviously shoot at rocket pods properly if you're directly above them.
Yeah.
And then the one front and side armor really helps against the small arms too.
Also 10 HP, a lot of rocket pods. So this is a nice heavy helicopter. Good at killing infantry. Really good at killing infantry.
The PD-71 and 85.
I never saw them. Very good. Getting extra price for the very good optics.
Yeah.
And are not good at it.
Yeah, PD-76. And I mean, it's not horrible, but just
this unit has a very special niche. When the Baltic Front got released, right, with the DLC, there was a lot of KT spam everywhere, right? And this unit has exactly 10 AP, which is just enough to kill one armor in one shot. So I was using these back then to counter the amount of KTs while they were super oppressive in the meta, right? Everybody was using KTs. I was running this unit. When you're getting really demoralized by the KTs, just try to use the 76B. It's a nice counter.
I would think so, yeah. And with the stealth when sitting in a bush, they're not gonna spot you very easily either.
Yes. So mostly for defensive, like it's a defensive, good defense against the KTs.
And that's basically it. T55 base is just not based at all. It's just low accuracy, no MG.
Yeah, sad unit. In comparison to the others, right? There are better, like Izvidiach is much
Especially,
better.
Izvidiach is literally the same price, but you get more accuracy and you get an MG as well. So even more autonomy.
Yeah, so just not the great unit.
Right.
Razzmann.
Well, they're the regular line infantry Recon squads, that's fine, but I think most notably they have access to the MTV.
Yes, and sometimes MI24D. Sometimes it's a good way to get MI24D out.
Yeah, if for some weird reason you want a lot of MI24Ds at the start of the game, and Razzmann are a good choice. I couldn't think of a reason, but
yeah. Nothing much to add. Just your regular Recon squad.
Yeah. Now Spetsnaz grew.
The best Recon tab in the game. The Recon unit in the game, I would say. Recon Infantry. I like that the most. My most favorite unit.
I mean, they also have obviously an assortment of great transports in the form of PTR 90s. Most notably, I think. Probably.
Essentially, only two transports are like really not usable. It's BTR 60B, 60PB, and BTR 70. Also MI24A.
Yeah, I was about to say that's great. Also pretty.
Pretty.
Yeah.
You should not really go for it.
It even looks. It just looks. Yeah, I don't want to look at this. Let's look at the instead.
Anything else you can justify taking the GRU.
Yeah. It's just all around. It's just very useful.
What this unit gives to the USSR is actually having a wheeled unit with a good anti-tank gun. Yeah, which might be very crucial in many situations, right? Because for holding the town against a five-pointer push, you really need that AT or to be there fast. Right? You just rush to the town, get the position, and hold. And for that, you need AT. Many other infantry might get demolished, and that was the problem with something like the Morskaya Pekota, right? They really lacked the AT.
Only 40% accuracy and 10 RPM.
Yeah, GRU, excellent fighting infantry. Has a very good primary weapon. Dragunov SVD is also really potent. RPG-26, excellent.
Just be aware that in forest fights, the Dragunov is gonna lose to MGs, so specialists will win.
Yeah, avoid really dueling other infantries, especially in forests.
Yeah, not on even ground. Or unless you like fighting like line infantry or something, then you will wreck them. But if fighting against other elite infantry, you don't want to be like one-on-one in the forest or something.
Yes,
that's where the Dragunov hurts. VMF.
The stealth sniper rifle.
Yeah, I think it's the only sniper rifle with the weapon sound of 1, which means that when it fires, it doesn't get easier to be detected. Although you will see the special effect of the small special effect of the sniper firing, and you hear a small sound. But when it's standing next to you, it doesn't matter if they fire or not with a sniper rifle. They're just as stealthy. So that's very unique and actually makes them kind of an interesting frontline unit for killing stuff.
Have you ever tried it? I never did. but
Not
maybe.
myself, but Nande. Nande, for people who don't know Nande Munai, really did that fairly frequently. And last time I played him, he plays very infrequently against the Soviet deck. He still used them, I believe, in Urals even, and uses them kind of for this purpose. Puts them in bushes near the front line and just lets them shoot. And of course, you don't want to just attack move them towards a forest or something. You want, like, for example, I think a prime example where they would be useful is in 1 versus 1 paddy field in the center zone with the square forest. From this, ideally from the side of the plateau, you put them into that 90-degree forest lines, right?
Yeah.
At the edge there, because those Recon squads there will just be able to spot enemy infantry in the square forest at the edge. And that's where they will effectively just deny that spot for enemy infantry, for example. Nice. So in situations like these, they can be nice. Of course, the big issue is if your opponent pays a bit of attention and is good at and stuff, then they can't just mortar you. We have only 2 HP, and if they have a good mortar or multiple mortars and get a bit lucky, then you're gonna be quickly dead. So that's the biggest issue, really. Or of course they just get suddenly run down by like a IFV or something if they can't be protected.
Razzmann, what was amazing? 2,500 games as USSR in ranked, and there is still stuff to try.
I mean, give them a try. They're again, it's a niche for sure. So I wouldn't say, oh, definitely put them in, but it is definitely something to consider.
Okay, I might even try to use them in the Urals. That's an interesting consideration.
I mean, you can also just use them in a BTR 70 or something, because Ural, of course, is slow as fuck. But like an affordable, like not a BTR 90 or something, because it's a bit too expensive. But just for actual frontline units, it's quite interesting. Or it's just you keep the weapon sign off and then see until there's a good situation where to actually use the Vintaurus or something. But it is certainly overlooked by some, and it's again one of those things that is just typical Nande. Nobody thinks of it, or nobody actually uses it, and Nande just actually annoys you quite heavily with this.
Yeah. Also, does he use them in single unit as a single unit or double stacks?
I think single units, but I guess you can just use them in a double stack as well.
Yeah, we'll need to try it.
I think what actually holds them down the most is that you just get 4 per card. Maybe, or is Soviet bonus is 10%? Yes.
Yes, 10%. So you get 4 or 3.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was 15 per. I think Baltic is 15. I don't think Soviet. Do you get 5 group per card or 4?
4.
Yeah, then it's 10%. Baltic is 15 because you get. Or is it? Is Baltic 15?
Let's continue. We have.
It's 10%. Yeah.
5 more units to cover. Jeeps, never
Jeeps,
saw them.
Yeah, don't. Plum, yeah, of course. Again, haha, exceptional optics ground unit, very meme. Don't use this garbage unit. UAC KPV. I mean, no, because you have the BRDM 2.
Yes.
BRDM 2 hard to fit in, but it's actually very useful to have still.
It's
just
super mobile.
So cheap, so mobile. You just spam it around the map. Unless it's like a very narrow map or a map where it's very easy to defend against it, some will manage to just sneak behind enemy lines. And if your opponent is stupid enough to use cheap CVs in their base, then they will just, kill them.
Yeah.
Or you just keep them
just kill any expensive artillery that might be in the base.
KBVT, of course, isn't very accurate at max range, let alone consistent, but against stuff that can't really defend itself and doesn't have armor, you just drive close to it, and then due to range scaling, you just kill them, and with AP scaling. So it is a very underutilized unit, and I think underappreciated unit as well.
Yeah, but we have here much more expensive, a bigger brother of the BRDM2 is BRDM3, which is essentially the BTR-80A, with additional recon stuff like good optics and medium stealth, right? And you pay almost double the price. Just almost the price of a cheap tank.
It's still a solid. It's a solid unit. Just like it's like the typical, it's an autocannon. It has good enough armor. It is affordable. It has optics. It has stealth. It can be base defense. It can be flank defense. It can be fire support if needed. It can be sneaking around if needed.
Yeah. I would like it to be 30 points, right? 35 points. It's already getting a bit pricey. But I'm not a big fan of these units in general. right, to have this firing bush thing. I'm not a big fan of these mechanics.
I very much like the BRDM3, and the BRDM3 and Hachinana is one of the reasons why I really pushed for the Czech Sneska to be changed from exceptional optics to good optics in 30 points Recon, where it's certainly a lot more useful. Because back in the day, before the AMX10 meta was was a thing, real Recon autocannons was the big shit in Blue Moto and Blue Mag, just Hachinanas everywhere for 25 points.
Yeah,
Those were a bane and were
AMX,
annoying and quite crucial as well.
then AMX happened, KTs happened, and these things are not that much
Yeah,
useful, right? Then
now KTs and AMX are everywhere and just shit on them. Yeah. Okay. Vehicle tab. Probably the strongest vehicle tab in the game. But it's just basically due to one unit.
yes.
Not really a lot of strong vehicle tab units in the game, unfortunately. ASU 85M used to be like very strong, right? 10 points.
Used to be 10 points. It was spammed. It was go-to fire support for
Spamberty. It's just one word, Spamberty. Oh my god, the hordes of ASUs. I think, didn't he use like even 3 or 4 cards, like the Soviet ones and the Polish ones or something?
Sometimes like this, yeah, like 3 cards.
Holy moly, dude. Just 10-point ASUs everywhere. Don't be fooled by the rate of fire, because the HE rate of fire is actually 6 RPM. If the HE rate of fire was 8, it wouldn't be that horrible. I mean, and you wouldn't use it in Soviets, but like for Eastern Bloc, the Polish one wouldn't really be that bad. But the 6 RPM on HE is really what kills it. If it had 8 HE on HE and 6 on kinetic, I think it would be a significant, or like not insignificant improvement. But still, like, it's just, it also only has one side armor, bad off-road speed.
Yeah, but back in the days, you were spamming this in triple stacks, and like just instead of infantry, this was
this is
the spam was ridiculous.
It was, yeah. And luckily, there's not that many 10-point vehicle spams in the game anymore. At least not ones that are useful.
BRDM2s, Malutka, Conquers M. What we can say about this? Not much. Like only useful it might be Conquers M, right? But
yeah,
just because it's somewhat decent, but it's still not a good unit.
These dedicated HGM carries just tend to be not useful, because most of the time I just get one shot, right? Tanks just take the hit to the front and then drive in range and just kill you. Or you're just not consistent. I mean, the Congress carriers, at least, by looks of it, can fire 5 missiles before having to reload. Some other carriers fire 1 missile and then have to reload, which is horrible. And if you want an ATGM carry, you just get like a BMP2 or something, or a BMP3, because for one, they essentially cost the same because they're cheaper and you pay for the infantry, so you get infantry as a bonus. And then in the case of the BMP2, they actually have 4 front armor, so you can tank. Yeah, so you can tank up to like 21 AP at max range, meaning you can survive an 84A, for example. You have the additional autocannon and stuff, and the infantry to like bait shots from tanks, etc. So they're just not very useful most of the time.
Yeah, usually BTR 152. Let's keep them. I think there is not much to say about these.
The BTR 152s are actually pretty nice, especially the CPTU 4 is actually much better, even though it only looks like a 50% rate of fire improvement, but the actual improvement is pretty significant.
Really?
So this CPTU base fires 12 shots with 0.4 seconds in between, and then has a reload for 5 seconds. But most of the time, only the first burst really matters, right? The CPTU 4 fires 24 shots with 0.2 seconds in between. So it fires twice as fast and basically for the same time, right? But unless my math is wrong, but with a high rate of fire.
Essentially plus minus 1 tick. Might try it, but these are fun units to use. Like I think you get to like 22 per card or 18, right? Depending on the veterancy, and you just put out hold card that one's out, Just rush it down the road and kill what you can.
Yeah.
Especially if there are no autocannons, might sometimes do.
And with the range
the job.
scaling, and of course compared to the KBVT, the rate of fire is just so much better. The CBTUs are so much better, and they have also a bit of improved range versus helicopters, so they're not all too bad with space defense either. But again, we have scratched it, so who cares?
But the best use actually of the ZPTU2 or either ZPTU4, I would say the ZPTU2 may be even better, is to kill the longbow.
You just drive up to it and stun it, and then just.
I mean, I killed 2 longbows with this. I was just rushing down the road, right, and I got just close enough to the longbow and killed it.
Mm-hmm.
It cost me a lot of DPTUs, definitely, but
I mean, at least yeah. I mean, even if you lose like 200 points versus CPTUs, it's often very worth it.
Yeah, in comparison, what the longbow can actually do, right? Longbow can.
And sometimes, in general, sometimes people forget that the trades are not just worth it if they're the same cost, but sometimes it's even worth it if you pay significantly more, depending on what it is, of course.
Yeah, so, just to get that card out of your opponent's hand.
Yeah. Jalo, it's Jalo, right?
Jalo, yeah.
With 4 marks of excellence on its gun.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very interesting unit. I still kind of like it, honestly. Like that's a raw 20 RPM, right? It's not like you fire, I don't know, 5 shots with 2 seconds and then reload for 10 seconds or something. It's just pure 3 seconds reload time of each shot for 1 minute, and then you're empty, which is kind of funny. But I think if it had just 1 more AP, it would improve it so much. Being able to one-shot KTs.
Yeah.
But still, though, for like having medium optics is very good. 50% base accuracy is really nice. 1 side armor is really a bit annoying, but at least 2 front armor. It's just, again, simply because KTs and AMX sense are really the main thing why this unit is just not particularly useful.
Mm-hmm. I would say maybe mostly the AMX sense, because against KTs you can really justify, but as you said, 9 AP holds it back a bit. I don't know. In short, the Soviet moto play is almost dead because of the aim extents and the KTs.
Yeah.
Soviet moto openers are dead.
Sturm, since we were talking about ATGM carriers, here's a carrier that has reload for 5 seconds after each missile. And I mean, the range is nice, but it doesn't have the speed to back up the range. Unlike the, I believe, unlike the BMP3, unless I'm mistaken.
I think this has an okay speed, just.
There's okay, it's same as Sphere, but the Archon of the BMP3 is even a bit faster. But it's I guess it's not horrible, but 20 AP is just, that's 20 AP and having to reload after each missile is really.
It's too expensive for the 20 AP.
Yeah.
Carrier, too expensive.
You basically pay a lot for the 175 meter range, which just isn't worth it.
Yeah.
SC-122?
A decent fire support.
I think a lot of decks would be very happy to have this unit, and still you don't see this that often in Soviets because of a different one. But it's just good fire support.
It is. It's like 4 HE, more than any almost more than most of the Blue 4 tanks.
Yeah, 4G, good range. Not the best accuracy, but it has decent splash, so that's not that big of a deal. 4 front armor is good to survive autocannons. And the KPVT is actually quite nice to have. Because if you, like, of course the gun is mainly used for long range sniping, so you don't have to, like, get dragged by autocannons at close range or something. But if you manage to then get into close range, that KBVT can actually be very, very useful to keep up with the damage and deal with like 5-pointers, because you have heat and not kinetic on your main gun. So that's actually quite a nice combination.
Yeah. So something like your nowadays SU-85M, which was used back then, with more armor, more HE.
It also used to be 15 points with 5 HE, then got nerfed to, I believe, 20 points, and then buffed to 15 points with 4 HE or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's okay. Well, okay,
It's
unit, a really good one.
it's fine, yeah. And then the Norov with 12 RPM autoloaded. There's one player I've ever seen this and nobody else. Do you know who it is?
No.
Ronin Iceman.
Ronin. Well, Ronin is a special player. He uses many different stuff.
he was. I remember like already like back in the day, he was using like BUs and then IL 102s, and I was laughing at him because I just kept sniping his BUs with like the Type 63, the cheap North Korean Recon tanks, and just kept side shooting him, and they were just sitting there and just kept getting side shot for like half a minute and then died.
Yeah, Ronin is a guy that uses the Gornostrelki 19 Mi-24Ds, base VDV in whatever transport he likes, and Spetsnaz, Norovs. He tries a lot of stuff in USSR. You might have even more experience of different USSR style than I do.
But yeah, just true armor. It's just it kind of looks somewhat interesting. It's just I think it's just the armor that holds it back. If it had more armor, then it would be kind of similar to basically like compare that gun with the chassis and the armor of the BMP 685. Right? On the BMP 685, it's really kind of the range and maybe the AP that holds it back. And on the Norov, it's the armor. But it also has medium optics. If it wasn't for the horrible armor, then it would be good for like the light flank stuff.
Yeah.
Then flame tanks.
Well, here you have a variety of two. Out of these, I would still go for the 055 if I would have to go. 62.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, the one armor can be nice to survive spikes. Also, it's just even slower.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't care for the gun because also for people who don't know, the gun actually, flame tanks don't actually have HE on their main gun,
which actually helps to micro them.
Yeah, for fire position. The thing with what you can also do, you can block line of sight with a napalm, so you can use it as like backup smoke if your mortar is empty or something for your tanks.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I don't want to say they're bad. It's just I don't know because I believe
it's just a bad platform that they are on, right? If they would be like, imagine T-72A.
Oh, that would be interesting.
With such a ATO,
or even just base T-72, like for just being a bit faster as well and having better armor.
Yeah, just faster and a bit better armor, right? That's the thing that these flamethrower tanks like. This is just a weak platform that gets killed too often. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have a bunch of Jeeps, probably with the best vehicle type ATGM carrier with the USZ or Congress M. Because I think if you want to go vehicle type ATGM carriers, just go for the Jeep ones. Because most of the time they die just as fast as the other ones, but they're at least Jeeper.
also you get TOW2 carriers with the
TOW2 carriers, and in way back when the Chumat carriers, when I believe they were 15 points even with the lower speed, of course. Chumat speed got buffed. Nande again kind of pioneered the spam of those when they were really cheap.
I was also using Chumas in my.
Oh yes, I remember the new Blue Mac deck.
Mechanized deck, yeah.
Yes, I remember that. I remember
AMX 10. It wasn't a bad thing, definitely, but the CS is more useful in the Mac deck.
And
speaking of CS, we have the Afghansky here, right? Afghansky is by far not as useful as CS.
Yeah, again, just like the Shilkas and the better user, just shoot for like, I don't know, 5 seconds, and then it has to reload for 5 seconds. Yeah. Again, if you want base defense or something like that, you just want some of your scratches that you have the infantry in. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the king of the vehicle type, really. The thing that makes this whole type so important, actually, for the Soviets.
The must-have unit.
It's really, I mean, yeah.
Must-have unit.
Not actually the Terminator, that's a different BMPT. But this BMPT here, this kind of weird prototype. It's just, I mean, what can you say? It has high armor, has a grenade launcher, an autocannon, a long range HE gun to like snipe those 2-man ATGM squads.
Exactly, the Milan 2s.
Just for people who don't know, keep in mind the HE gun and autocannon cannot be fired at the same time. So if you're at close range fighting, you want to turn off your HE gun because it will use the HE gun over the autocannon, but at close range, of course, the autocannon has a much better damage output.
Or you just micro it.
Or you just micro it. But
yeah. You usually, when I usually play it, I just drive the thing close, fire the HE gun, big one, immediately turn it off. It switches to autocannon kind of quickly, and I'm just continue stunning it, continue up to the stun the infantry, which I'm fighting with. Right, I'm using it this way, and it actually gives a lot of potential, especially when you have those reloads, because the HE gun has a reload and the autocannon has also its reload after the burst, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it might be good to switch.
It's like using the AMX tanks, turn off the main gun after they're fired, and then the autocannon.
But I have never tried that, but yeah, similar stuff to this.
I mean, I also only recently tried it because I was kind of forced to play with those tanks. But yeah, and then of course the medium optics. I mean, high speed is of course really good for like hunting infantry in the forest when they're trying to run away, because that thing just kills any infantry. Although keep in mind, you do get double tapped by anything with 23 and above. So if you have like 2 stacks or of like Rima 85 or Panzer Yakari. But then of course the thing is the BMPT is generally not alone. So
yeah, it's a thing that needs to be supported still, right? Usually with the BTRT, Saperi, VDV, anything, you name it. But
it's just a single one of those. Just if it's supported, just oof. And with the medium optics, it's just also
it kills everything that is not a tank.
Mm-hmm. And the medium optics also just happen to be like, if it's like on a flank, it's pretty affordable. So if you have it on a flank or something, it's gonna be very useful to deal with like IFVs or something sneaking around, BRDM3s, that type of stuff. AMX 10s to a certain extent, I would assume, but of course, it's not a very good counter to those at all. But it's not completely helpless, depending on the situation.
Yeah, it's a great unit. For 60 points, it's amazingly priced.
Oh baby, that thing's crazy.
So,
to your favorite tab then?
Definitely my favorite tab. So are we gonna cover the transports as well, right?
Sure, yeah.
Or no?
Yeah, no, I mean it's not a lot to cover.
I haven't
anyway.
covered the Soviet transport, but
I mean, we kind of mentioned them with the infantry.
With the infantry, yeah. So it's
but I think with helicopters it's worth mentioning, especially the K-29, the rear armor, right, is actually kind of special.
Yeah, the rear armor is special. That no other helicopter has a rear armor, as far as I'm aware, and especially why it's useful. Sometimes when your helicopter engages the infantry, well, infantry fires back, even if it's one armor, right? It's still gets into panic and so on. And Mi-24Ds and all the other helicopters might start to spin, actually. And during those spins, right, you expose your rear armor, this unarmored, and you really get a lot of damage into it, right? It doesn't happen with the K-29. K-29 is even more resilient, right? Especially because of the rear armor. Because when you do the spins, right, you're not getting killed. If you have like different helicopters and you need someone to expose where the enemy infantry is hiding, use the K-29. Excellent unit for it. Especially if you have some Mi-8 MTBs to support it and so on.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's how you hold up the gun. Actually, never paid attention. Does the gun seems to have like a how turreted is it? Does it have like a proper turret?
Not the greatest turret, but it's okay.
But it's like not. I mean, once it fires, it's like doing something at least, right?
Yeah, it's not fixed.
But yeah, you obviously buy it for like the rocket pods, not for the gun.
Yeah, and it's of the rocket pods, it's like one of the best helicopters in the game.
Mhm.
Or like
And you like also
is
get a lot of them, right? The MTV and the Lynx 87s, right? They come like 2 salvos, but you want to get 80 rockets on that K29, so
just keep
it's a big
killing
boy.
and killing and killing and killing until everything is dead.
Or just keeping everything stunned and panicked until your reinforcements arrive.
Yeah, one of the best actually helicopters for grinds, right? If you need to grind the town and support your infantry grinding in the town, the Morskaya Pekota or whatever, K29 is amazing. It's even better than MTV. MTV is better at if you go to the MTV, it's better in sniping AA or killing lightly armored stuff. Essentially, soul skin targets and so on. Also good at supporting infantry, but the K29 is just excels in killing infantry.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the Akula. What is it? Is Akula shark?
Yes.
Akula is shark, and the other one is called alligator, right? The K52.
Yes.
Yeah, the
alligator
Akula.
is alligator.
When back in the day, very very early on, for a fairly short time, also had medium stealth because of the black paint, or so was the argument. I don't remember.
The black paint makes you stealthy.
It used to basically be the tank killer until the day that NY28 got buffed.
I still prefer this Aquila till this day.
Yeah, I mean, even I wouldn't really say it's like necessarily better, but it's just cooler. I mean, it has it in the name. It's a cooler. No, but it's just it has more. It's more flavorful. I feel like for people who don't know, the VKers actually have like a 2-round burst. They fire 2 missiles in very quick succession, and they have to reload for 2 seconds, as opposed to like on the Mi-28 and virtually any other helicopter that isn't the longbow, having to reload for 1 second after each missile. So that's kind of cool, giving like a pseudo ripple fire, if you will.
Yeah, but the Vicar fire extremely fast. The missiles are
Very
extremely
fast.
quick.
Bad stabilizer, but really good accuracy. So you want to attack move that thing when you want to kill tanks, so that you get its stationary accuracy as soon as possible. Just like on a K52, the gun is fixed, but not that big of a deal here, since you want to use your VKs at max range and not your autocannon, of course. Igla helps that your opponent doesn't just try to give some self defense, which is always nice to have.
It's just expensive helicopter, expensive but very powerful
And
helicopter.
Can get a tail rotor crit despite not having one. But yeah. Then the 2 transport hinds, the ugly little duckling, and then the good one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we need to talk about
the divergent in the chat.
Yes, exactly. I don't think we need to talk about. I mean, just even ignoring the stats, just look at how ugly the cockpit is and this little tiny 50 cal looking out of it. It's just pathetic. Ugh, okay. 24D, of course, I think everyone knows. It's just Yak B and like, killing and just randomly side-shotting enemy super heavies with its garbage flater. I mean, most of the time you get it on veteran or elite with special forces, right? With Gru or with Specialny, stuff like that. So the flater is actually
sometimes it's.
I mean, I would say more than sometimes. Really, I think it can actually be somewhat reliable. Especially since I think most of the time you actually just fired at like IFVs and stuff at like fairly close range as well.
Yeah, especially you never expect much of it, and it still surprises you.
Yeah, and at somewhat close range, the S5s on veteran or elite are not that useless. So there's that. But yeah, the Yak B, of course, is the big star here.
It was even better back in the days, but
back in the day was just fucking broken.
Yeah,
just perma stunning tanks.
It was perma stunning, and it was even less susceptible to like any getting stunned itself, right? And there was essentially no way to sneak infantry against the deck with the Mi-24Ds.
Oh, that was something else.
Only unit you could sneak in was double stack of SAS. You could just instantly kill it, right? But no other infantry was sneakable through the town because through the forest. You only just flying the Mi-24Ds around the forest, and anytime they encounter infantry, they just demolished it without a chance for infantry to really do anything.
No, not a big brother.
Even bigger brother, Mi-24P. Fixed gun.
Yeah, again, this thing now has a fix. You can even see it, right? It's a bit hard to see with the skin. But there's again a fixed gun. The gun itself, once it fires, is far from bad by any means. But again, it just has to turn for a while. Good rocket pods, good. I mean, for 80 points, good missiles, right? The range is obviously the big thing, and 20 AP is more than enough to like threat medium tanks and kill IFVs, and that's really what it's supposed to do. And like good fires or whatever. But of course, you virtually never really use it because you have access to the VP.
Yeah.
Which has
VP.
Most. I mean, it has Kokonem. Kokonem is of course 2 extra AP, but most notably the turreted gun is really the big deal.
Yeah. And as far as I'm aware, right, it has written like Gesha 30k, but it's actually 23k. Should be different gun, a bit actually.
Eugen. I don't know.
Anyway, but
maybe someone in the comments can tell us.
Write in the comment, guys. What's the proper gun on the VP? Should be.
Yeah.
Mi-28.
Yeah. That's. It really looks like a fucking tank.
Mm-hmm. Like a flank tank.
Just look at this huge gun on the bottom. Holy shit! And this huge turret there. Jesus.
It's the same gun as on the
Akula, yeah.
BMP2s.
Oh, and the BMP. Oh yeah. But and another Akula and such. But with the turret, of course, so you can actually fire it properly. You have like measly 10 rockets that are. I mean, they're good rockets, but it's just 10 rockets. So they can be nice sometimes, but it's like a whatever type of thing. You get them for the attacker compared to the Akula. You get more, which might be preferable because with how often you might break line of sight with moving around near bushes and such, might lose line of sight all the time. But you have 25 AP, you have good accuracy, it's fast. Most notably, the Mi-28 is 3 back hard as opposed to 2, and it's 20 points cheaper compared to the Akula. So, I mean, they're both fine.
Just what do you prefer more? Mi-28 might be. At some situation
it's probably I don't know. I'm not even sure because I think these days the Iglas are very, very useful, the Akula, because the Mi-28 you can just rush down with something like a Tiger. Against an Akula you might not want to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm using K50. I need to try the Mi-28 more to be able to say about it more.
But I think in general, 1v1s, these like expensive tank killers are pretty niche, outside of like a longbow or like a Tiger, but most notably the longbow, Mi-28 and K50. They're like the type of unit that if you can fit them in, there are gonna be situations where they can really wreck your opponent. But I think most of the time they're also gonna be more of the win more type of unit, rather than a unit that brings you back into the game.
They might be good, when you're getting tongue rushed.
Also, the K52 has no pilot either.
K50 doesn't have a pilot.
Yeah, at least unless I'm blind. But yeah.
No, I also don't see him. Yeah, so Mi-24V, awkward unit.
Awkward, yeah. Garbage rocket pods, but Yak B and 8 Iglas, but 100 points, no optics. This is just
unit that you cannot use on the opener, right? Because many decks. This we get to the. I don't know how long we are streaming already. Recording already,
2.5 hours.
Yeah, but when we started, which thing we started, right? We said that the USSR is playing differently than the other decks, right? All the other decks have a helicopter that you're just using the helicopter. You're using the opener to cover your helicopter opener, right? You cannot do that with Mi-24V reasonably because it's super expensive and it doesn't have medium optics, and it gets
you will still need like a
laughed on by DAPs or anything else.
Tigers, ninjas, so-calls even. It's just, and the thing is, you don't have access. Like even if you were to open with it, you don't have access like a Hera or something, right? The cheapest Recon helicopter you get is the Mi-2, but the Mi-2 is 200 km/h slow. So at that point, just get a K-52, even if it's kind of overpriced very often because it's just a glorified AA helo. But you just, yeah.
But that's maybe one of the Mi-24V being this way is one of the reasons why the KF-52 is so dominant choice, such a dominant choice in the Recon tab over the Mi-24K.
Yeah. Or if you really fancy, just get an Akula, and then you have the medium optics on your A-class.
Yeah.
But no.
The best way to use this unit actually is your mobile AA. Like literally your mobile AA platform. When you have to cover wide flanks against enemy enemy helicopters, that's it, right?
Yeah,
so
but
you're but you already need to have units on the ground that you need to come and defend. Right? This is like I'm going to come and defend my forces with this. Where I'm like in the A, this is the unit for this. That's why it has where the amount of iglas might, the fact it has 8 iglas, it might shine, right? You can defend the right, left, and so on. Other than that, I don't see any much use for this unit.
Yeah. MI4s, the MI4A used to be really good. It used to carry 80 S8 rockets, i.e. the ones used by MI24P or
the
VP.
It was essentially a stat clone of K29, just without the with
it has the same armaments, yeah,
same
rocket pods, yeah. And it was pretty good. I wouldn't call it OP, but it was certainly used very often as like fire support for assaulting towns, especially very useful for that. And then it got murdered by giving it the S5s, which it reportedly historically had. Apparently, it never really had those S8s or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's obviously used now in the MIA4V even more so. I don't really think we need to waste any more words on those.
No. Just at the current day, very slow, very fragile, not really potent helicopters for kind of a lot of money.
And then the Mi-8s, obviously, in case you don't know, MTV is easily the way to go. The Mi-8T has those useless S5s. Mi-8TV has even more useless S5s and a 50 cal. But the MTV has great S13s.
Yeah, S13s. Demolish anything that is not a tank, and even sometimes a tank.
Yeah, don't underestimate them side or let alone rear shotting tanks. And for one, dealing not insignificant damage and not rarely also just critting them.
Yes.
All right then.
Usually, just one thing with the MTV, the S13s, as powerful as they are super expensive to resupply. Like really, resupplying a few of these helicopters, right, is gonna drain your FOB like crazy. Yeah.
All right then, the air tab, your second favorite.
My second favorite tab. Maybe sometimes even my first favorite tab.
Ooh.
The USSR.
IL-102. My first memory of this plane was, I believe it was in beta, losing 2 Leopard 2A5s to a single IL-102.
Wow.
I don't know if it was different back then. I don't think it was, but who knows? Maybe they changed the drop pattern or something, or maybe HE bombs used to be more potent. I have no idea. But
it's just boxy plane.
It's quite. It's an Amazon package on with 2 engines next to it. Yeah, it's I think if you use this plane, then your strategy involves just overloading the enemy plane anti-air with 2 armor planes and just
taking this IL-102, you take also the two Su-25Ts, but you can take them down with it because
you actually want them.
To the armor planes. And
for people who don't know, those are the only 2. Those 2 and the A-10 Thunderbolt, the only planes with 2 front and rear armor, and 2 armor reduces HE damage by 60%, meaning they have essentially 25 HP unless they get shot to the side, which doesn't happen that often, but can happen. But if you're good at maneuvering them, then you can like turn them around if you see the missile coming and they just get shot into the rear. But so yeah, that massively increases the survivability by a huge amount. and then you can just, especially on like more open maps like Mudfight, you can just bully the enemy AA and like snipe their AA together with seaplanes, or like spot him with a K-52, and there's a lot of nasty stuff you can do.
For sure.
And yeah, the
But
only
let's
reason
be honest, you play kind of a lot, especially the IL-102 and S25T. They're expensive.
you certainly pay a lot, so that's why, I mean, as brain dead as they can sometimes be, they certainly, especially at 2050, take a good amount of skill and experience to get the value out of them. If you're too careless, you will just lose them. Like, even if they have effectively 25 HP, if you underestimate the enemy air defense or just fly over it, then you can still very easily lose it. So yeah.
MiG-21 base.
Rocket pods really have fallen out of meta. They used to be very popular. Or, well, let me put it this way. A lot of people just had one of them in their deck, and like a lot of their decks. For me, one of the prime reasons was being able to snipe those pesky Recon Bradleys. When they were 80 points, I believe. No, 70 points? A good bit cheaper than they were now. Smoke wasn't really used nearly as much, so they were very, very powerful, and nobody used heavy tanks. Everyone just used medium tanks. And those were like great for sniping those pesky assholes.
Essentially, they are, anything that is soft skin or AA pieces. I saw them mostly like used to snipe AAs, right?
AA. They can certainly snipe up to 5 armor, which some people might underestimate. The Polish MiG-21 rocket pod plane can't. They're not. It's not as good as against like 4 or 5 armor, but these ones certainly can.
Yeah. And why do you think they fall out of the meta? I just think maybe people are using more ASFs, right?
I think that's, and like I think in general people. I think
the
planes
better?
have been more important, and so it's more important to have like stronger planes, and as a result, also more ASFs, and also in a certain sense, power creep in planes, right? You have Hawks, you have MiG-29s, like many DLC planes are like really, really strong, and as a result, the non-DLC decks use more ASFs. Peace Rhines got buffs, KWS got buffed.
Yeah, that's true. Also, like these are very early game planes, I would say.
Yes.
They are, if you're performing some sort of a rush or very aggressive playstyle, they might be used.
Or that, or just again win more, right? If your opponent's on the back foot and you spot their AA, then it's very likely that if you already wrecked them in the opener or something, or in the mid game, then maybe it's their only AA and then you just sniped it, and then they have to invest even more into like non-combat units, but to stop like the air assault, etc. So
yeah, you have to be very, very aggressive when using these planes. They support the aggressive gameplay, but you also are required to play very aggressively because you need to hold the tempo. So, and I think it's usually not that not possible as much to hold the tempo recently. Maybe also because of the DLC units spikes and any super cheap aim extent that can defend against cheap sneaking aggressive stuff, right?
yeah.
Cheap aggressive stuff, right? If you know what I mean. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah. All right then. MiG-21 SMT.
I don't even know what the plane is.
It's basically a Jaguar, but not good. You know. I really like the British 60-point Jaguar. Essentially the same payload, but has 20% ACM for free, which is obviously huge. Actually, if you could, like, but yeah, it's just cluster planes, big ones like the Block 5 especially, pretty good in general. The lower end cluster planes, they're the type of planes that are like nice to have in certain situations, but basically never worth sacrificing a plane slot for.
Plane slots are very expensive, so.
And yeah, and
the full plane tap costs 15 activation points. I guess you all know it, but it's there's a lot of stuff to take in the USSR, especially the logistic taps and the support tab, infantry tab, recon tab. There are a lot of good stuff to take, and every air slot is there's still a lot of good stuff to take in the air. Let's continue.
Yeah, MiG-23 ML and MLD. Helo Hunter and Helo Hunter Prime.
ML is actually deadly, as I saw used by the ML Alexander. I don't know why he used the name ML Alexander. Maybe because of a MiG-23 ML.
Yeah, it has those low-end R60 Molniers, which actually have only 1 second reload time. All the mid and high-end missiles have a 2-second reload time, as seen on the MLD. So that is something that you have to always keep in mind. It's cheap, it's fast, obviously not survivable, but you don't care for it very much.
Usually, you like out like 2 or 3 of these Molnias, right? And you're heal hunting running down the helicopters.
Yeah.
So that's the reason to take MiG-23 ML. It's really mediocre at killing planes. MiG-23 MLD, on the other hand, it can do good against planes. I got my PU shot down by MLD today in a duel, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's just how good is the gun?
The gun is okay. It's
I guess I have the armor tool still open. Might as well take a look.
Just take a look. It's not a Vulcan, right? It's like 50%
Actually,
of a Vulcan, approximately.
It is.
It is, but it's lower
accuracy. It's the same rate of fire. Well, it depends on which though. The lower end Vulcans have the same accuracy. Like for example, the Peace Run is the same accuracy actually.
And
it has worse suppression, but the rate of fire is the same. The salve length is the same. Salve reload is the same.
Range.
I
don't know.
On the Peace Run versus planes has more range, but helicopters the same. Well, versus helicopters is basically the same, and besides the accuracy, which on high end planes is 40%, but against compared to lower end planes, it's the same accuracy. Puff also has 30, and the Puff, which doesn't have a Vulcan, but a Vulcan stat clone, has less range versus planes. So I guess it's a good gun.
It is the better gun than from what the Soviets can bring. The Gesha 30L, which is on the high
might as
end,
well not exist. All right.
So the expensive seed.
MiG-25. I mean, it's an expensive seed. It's kind of like a super heavy, right? It's 50% ECM seed with 5,250 meter range and good accuracy. It's like an ECR. I guess those are really the only tools that are exactly like that. So the other expensive seeds are kind of unique, right? With the Raven, with the Fave out, it's just trash. The Block 52D, which is great, but it's essentially like a slightly worse ECR, I assume, right?
Well, it has 828 AP, which
very, very, very rarely matters. It matters versus the PGC 88. It matters versus the
Centurions,
the Challenger Marksman. You can two-shot the Challenger Marksman. I cannot. You can one-shot the Chief Marksman. I cannot. And the Centurion Marksman, you can one-shot and I can. So it matters against the Chieftain, the Challenger, and the PGC 88.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Commonwealth is not that meta at the moment, so it plays rarely.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, it's fine in team games, right? In team games, if you need siege or something, that's your choice. And 1 versus 1s, for 1 you have the K52 probably, and 2 I would still prefer the SU-24 personally.
Yeah, just because of the priority per card, and they are cheaper to get out.
Yeah. And we have RBT. It's a mediocre cluster plane. Probably a better choice than a MiG-21 SMT, but being with, I believe, 2 per card and having not an amazing payload. When you want to, like, let's say, quote unquote high end cluster plane, and you have 6 AP bombs, then you probably want at least 12, like the Aardvark or the F-16, the Danish one. And 8 at 2 per card just doesn't. I think if it was 3 per card, it'd probably be actually pretty decent. You probably would still not pick it, but it would be.
I don't know. I saw people using it. Try using it. I never tried to do so myself. I prefer the artillery, but yeah, it can be used, but it's not great.
As strong as the, although these days not even that much, but as important as smoke in tank play is, and cluster planes to a certain extent kind of work against it, it's still not worth putting in over the other planes that you have access to.
Yeah, get to the star.
The PD.
Yes, MiG-25 PD.
That thing, this is similar to the Buratino, got changed quite a few times. It used to be on elite at 90 points. Oh, that was painful.
That was a go to
painful.
ASF.
Oh, I hate that piece of shit. That obviously, for people who, again, don't know, with the 2.8 HE rockets, or missiles, I should say, the big thing, of course, is if you get a crit, you one-shot planes. And it's outside of the MiG-31s and the F-14. The only ASF that can do that. And compared to those planes, you have two sets of missiles and you fire them faster and with much better accuracy since you come on veteran. So you're these days it's just a dice roll, right? Either you don't do anything or you just kill everything in the air. It's kind of like the OSA in that sense.
And this thing actually can launch all four when they are closing in. You're going to do head on fight against that ASF. You always get 4 missiles out.
Yeah, it's not an if you run only one card of ASFs, it's would be very spicy to only run the PD. But it's probably like one of the best ASFs you can have as like a second card, because it's very affordable and it very much still scares off like enemy bombers and like non-ASFs. And if your opponent buys like a Rafale or something and dares to gamble, then you might really come out ahead. And if you don't, well, he lost 100-point ASF to 180-point ASF. That's kind of expected.
Yeah. Also, speaking about PD and 8 HE, we can mention again the 2 armor vehicle, 2 armor planes.
Yeah, well,
the best counter to it, actually.
Yeah, you have like 32 HE in like one pass, and that doesn't count crits. And of course, you stun basically instantly, so it's also a nice bonus. If you don't kill, you always instantly stun planes. Yeah, 32 HE in like very short time. It's quite a damage output.
Definitely. No other ASF can do that.
Okay, I mean, although I would reckon the Tomcat comes close. If it flies towards you, for one, it will get like 2 Phoenixes off. Then at close range, it can fight the AIM-9s and it has the Vulcan. But of course, given the accuracy, I guess the average HE is probably still lower.
Maybe, yeah.
Alright, anyway.
I don't know. Anyway, continue.
MiG-27
was super oppressive back in the days.
Yeah, again, before smoke really was a thing, that thing was 95 points and the gun was just crazy. I remember losing a 2-sec of M2 Wilkes to like a single run because the splash damage of the gun just did like 5 damage to both of them. That thing was just crazy. But of course, these days you virtually never see it. Same with the MiG-27M. For one, you would never use the 27M over the base one because I believe you had lower availability, and all you got was a bit of ECM and range. Really not worth it.
You get 2 M's on trained and 2 base on veteran.
Or 3 down with it, right?
Or 3 down with it, yes.
Which is, I think, is what most people ran because the gun was just really the star of this thing. But you also have the 27K, which is just, it's fine. But what the big thing, of course, of this thing, I need to go to creating a deck, is that you, unlike basically every other 2 per card ATGM plane, you get this on rookie instead of trained. Meaning you don't get that bit of extra accuracy via veterancy, which at least feels very noticeable. I don't know how, off the top of my head, I don't know what the actual difference is, but it really seems more inconsistent than something like a Syria, which comes on trained.
Yeah, the trade-off, you get more ECM, but and then you are faster than Syria.
Yeah, the gun is really. You can do some shenanigans with the gun, but usually it's not worth it because you have such a you are that fast and have such a high turn radius that you can't really do multiple passes or something. So it's only really worth it if you like know there's no AA or you're just bullying your opponent because you already won by so much anyway. But in the end, it's still fine. Like it's 2 30 AP missiles on a fast plane, a 2 per card, and decent ECM.
Yes.
So if you want that, it's very much worth using.
MiG-29S, the poor brother of the glorious Czech MiG.
Yeah, it's just
not much to say, not much to add, right?
It's a mediocre bomber. It's survivable, but the Wimples are like kind of nice to have, but with the horrible gun, it's just such an awkward Helo Hunter because with this weird, how do you pronounce it? Gisha? Gisha. With this weird Gisha, your planes just refuse to actually dive helos, so you never get more than one Wimple off anyway. So it's just a weird, just an awkward plane. It's not really horrible, but just
No, not bad stat-wise. It looks kind of nice on paper, but in practice, it's just a bomber.
Yeah.
Which is not and not that powerful bomber.
Yeah, it's
a
the damage
survivable,
output
not
on
that powerful.
the area that it hits is good, but it's just a pretty small area.
Yeah.
MiG-29M with medium. This is a very interesting plane. For one, it has medium stealth, which is one of the very few non-seat planes that have stealth.
Mhm.
The other ones are the Rafale and the Nighthawk, I believe. Those are the only ones, I think. The cluster, it doesn't have a lot of cluster bombs, but there are some cluster bombs, but it also has like 2 R-77. So this is like the type of plane that doesn't do like a job, that doesn't fill a job, but it's like one of those nice to have units. It can be like a second in line backup ASF to help your main ASFs or something. When you already bought it or something, you can also use it to like cluster a certain place. Let's say there's on mud fight in the open, your opponent has like a tank CV, but it's just hidden behind smoke and you can't really push it out, and you can at least force it or damage it out or something. Again, clusters, while you don't want like a bad cluster plane like the MiG-21 is to fill a plane slot, they're still kind of nice to have. And the MiG-29 just also like does air patrol. It's stealthy a bit. Yeah.
It's a nice unit. Just it's coming. 2 untrained are not good for ASF role, and 1 on elite is really incapable bomber and very card inefficient unit. Right, it's 1 card that usually costs like you could take 5 plane cards. It costs like 5 activation points. It's 1 plane, which is not super amazing. It's cool and so, but it doesn't carry the weight.
Actually, it carries more than 2 tons.
Okay.
Also has a fancy 250 turn radius for I don't know what reason. That's the only MiG-29.
It's cool, but it's
that's again not really a big deal, especially because with its horrible gun and no short range missiles, it can't really dogfight. But it has a fancy turn radius.
Oh.
MiG-31 and 31M. So first of all, if you ever decide to use either of those, don't use the base one. It's just semi-active means that only one will be in the air until it either hit or missed the plane. And given at what range this thing fires, that thing is going to be in the air for a long ass time.
Especially those missiles are very slow.
Given this turn radius and given the aim time of this thing, which isn't shown but is... well, I guess never mind. Okay, it's only 0.2 seconds aim time. 0.4, probably because it's semi-active. So the aim time isn't really bad on this plane. But still, it's going to be in the air for a long time until you fire the second one. Whereas the MiG-31M will fire the thing in bursts of 2. And it has higher base accuracy. And higher range. I think you have 1 lower step of veterancy, but firing 2 at high base accuracy is just so much better, of course. You have 2-second aim times, so unfortunately you basically have to fly at the highest plane speed in the game for 2 seconds straight towards the plane before you can turn with the horrible turn radius. So in reality, most of the time, when you're turning and the enemy plane is also flying towards you, then you're gonna be in range of that, so you have to pray to RNGs that one of your Wimples hit and stuns the plane. Which means that while they kind of have a role they're mostly useful in team games, I wouldn't suggest using them in 1 versus 1s because you also only get 1 per card. They're very inconsistent and their role is really just to deter bombers and not so much ASFs. And yeah.
They are good for spotting on a huge map.
Oh yeah, they have, even though it says exceptional, just like on MiG-29Ms, they have twice the air optics compared to other exceptional planes, the MiG-31s as well as the Tomcat. So they will most notably spot seat and most even more notably, Nighthawks so much earlier. And with a high time over target of nearly 200 seconds, it is a nice bonus, but still not worth a whole plane card in 1 versus 1s at least.
In team games, it's good to have one of these on the team, right? Just circling behind, just spotting, and be aware of.
And occasional getting like a missile out or two.
What?
Occasionally getting like 2 missiles out if there's like no
occasionally
ASF
getting
or something.
2 missiles out, but usually mostly just for spotting.
Yeah.
Just your radar, flying radar.
Su-24, we briefly touched on this. It's just your cheap seaplane. If you get it down with it, it's not very consistent, but it's affordable. It still has stealth, which is important.
It's one of those better affordable seaplanes. It's not bad at all, I think.
Yeah, I mean the Puff, for example, is a kind of multi-role as in like a helo hunter, but has shorter range on the missiles and has no stealth and is slower. I think when it comes to like affordable seaplanes, I think the Prowler is the best, although it's already 110 points, so not that great. Or actually the East German SC-22 is really nice as well.
But this one is the cheaper than the.
I think it's the cheapest stealth you can get, actually.
Yeah. This is a good plane.
It is a good plane, yeah.
Nothing to complain about. SU-24M.
When that got, I think originally it had like, I don't know, 12, 13 HE bombs or something like that, and then got changed to like this 30, 11 HE bombs, and I was like losing my mind. I was like, oh my god, I want such a great bomber for Germany too. This is so pog. I'm losing my mind. And when it got released for like a while, it was like you see it everywhere, and it just murdered stuff in towns. And these days, nobody uses it.
It's a bit stupid because most of the time it's a one-way ticket.
Yeah. The thing is also when you have a lot of bombs, you take a lot of time to drop those bombs. This is why like the J7H is actually and the Hawks are like surprisingly survivable. But when you have like multiple bombs or like a lot of bombs, you also this the moment you start dropping the bombs, like the moment you are at the maximum range of being able to fire, you still keep flying towards the enemy because you don't drop all at once, and that's the big issue. Compared with not so great turn radius and okayish ECM or like bad ECM for that price.
Yep.
Like for 10 points more, you get the F111C with basically bombs that do more damage. You evac earlier, you have better ECM, and you're even faster.
So your carpet bomber, but this is your Soviet carpet bomber, but doesn't survive.
Yeah.
His first carpet bombing, usually.
All right, SC-25. It's fine.
It's fine. A bit too expensive in comparison to the A10, especially. Lacks the back armor, which makes it not survivable enough. But it's great when there's a low density of enemy AA, and it's a good AA sniper.
Yeah, exactly. With those HG rocket pods, it's basically guaranteed to snipe AA. Whereas like with A10 or something, if you're banking on those missiles hitting and you're already turning away once you fired and you missed, then maybe you're screwed or you're just annoyed at least. With those rocket pods, you basically guarantee a kill unless it has armor. But if it has armor, it's like a lot of armor, i.e. a marksman, and it survives, then it's gonna be stunned. And then you know beforehand that you also have to like fire 80 gem missiles.
Well, this thing is excellent at killing single piece AA, right? Single or like in the close vicinity, like so they can stand it both. Because when it's diving the AA, it's almost invincible, right? Because of the 2 frontal armor. It's very, very, very durable. It can get into the AA and demolish it. But when it doesn't, right, or there is some other AA nearby and it starts to turn away, it usually gets killed. That's the way to lose the S25T when there is a second AA piece there and it shots you in the back. That's the reason why it's not used.
I have to say, I can't believe today or these days that 5 or 6 years ago I was very much, I wouldn't call it lobbying, that would be way too much, but definitely mentioning that I think that the other SC-25s should also have 2 rear armor, and I'm so happy that they don't. Imagine the North Korean SC-25K for 110 points with 2 rear armor. Or the Czech
That
or
would be cool.
Entente with the Czech SC-25 and 2 rear armor. Oh,
I would be perfectly fine. I'm all for it. Like just do it, guys.
Oh my god, I'm so happy that for once Eugen didn't listen. Because it was most definitely not just me mentioning this. Most definitely not.
Yeah, I would still like the change.
No, I mean yes, of course you would. Okay, 250, of course. There it is, the 2 rear armor.
Yeah, and especially the long range because that you just using the small turn radius, just throwing them out and exposing the rear armor while retreating back and doing another short circle, throwing another vehicle, and you do this until everything there is dead.
Yeah, I did a unit spotlight on this video, so just watch that. Or just watch any of the games against Putin where he plays USSR to see how it just wrecks shit.
Oh, excellent plane. Used on elite most of the time, and only if you go for the combination of the IL 102 and heavy A sniping game, you go for 2, right? When you need to, like, you use essentially you want to exchange for the enemy, like to exchange for the superiority, right? You either bait the enemy ASFs, trade the enemy's ASFs well, demolish the AA well, right? And the enemy has still the second one as a backup to exploit the dominance in the air.
All right, 27M.
The super plane.
Yeah, that's like a super high tech. Yeah, it's just 50% ECM. It's fast. It has the second best AT missiles in the game.
Well, only the Grom Bs are better. Like
Well, the
Super
Grom B
Caliph.
or the G Mavericks. They have 60% accuracy with 30 AP.
The G-Mavics are on Kahu.
Yeah.
These has four of them, and
comes on veteran.
Yeah, used to come in elite.
And I think you could. I think when it came on elite, you could also get a 2 down with it. I think.
I don't think so.
Or maybe only early on. I vaguely remember it was the case. Maybe I'm wrong.
It was a very long time ago, but yeah.
But yeah, it's just like the high end.
This is a plane
that
when you are protecting your super heavy with your opponent is protecting your super heavy with an ASF, right? You fly the S-27M, it shuts down the ASF, kills the super heavy, and gets away.
Yeah, that was like the plane. That was the plane you complained the most about before people started using it, or because Putin started using the 2050. Before the 2050 and the A10 were like really discovered, the 27M was the thing everyone complained about. Yeah.
Because it was also the super heavy meta around those times, and there was a lot of super heavies, and it was just wrecking all the stuff and getting away.
It was protecting your own super heavies and killing the enemy super heavies.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all there's to say. Now the other 27, the SC-27 is. Oh, hold on. It's actually Su-27, isn't it? Like, wouldn't proper pronunciation be Su instead of SU?
Su-27S. Su-27S.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you would say Su and not SU, right?
In Russian, you could say Su. Su, not SU, but Su.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's the Su-27S, Zu, or whatever. It's just sad.
It's
just...
it's not a dueling plane. It's a good plane for
like anything that isn't an ASF.
It's a good defensive A. You know, like you have a defensive ASF, when you have your A on the ground and you just need that one or two ASFs just to lobbing those missiles and hiding behind their own A. It's a very niche role, very difficult way to use them.
Yeah.
And
usually not worth putting in.
Usually not, but it has a place, right? Especially it has a still nice missiles, right? They have extended range. It's not a terrible one.
It's just for most.
It has a use. Just it's difficult to use.
For most purposes, it's just a polished MiG-29 for 20 points more and worse veterancy, and which in return is worse accuracy.
Yeah,
that's really the big deal. So worse plane for a higher price most of the time. And then the big boy the
of the
PU.
sky.
Well, kind of. It's interesting that the PU always gets like, it's like always like so kind of like in folklore considered like, oh, that's like the king of air, when in reality it's like basically on par with the Seagull and the Eurofighter, but all of them just get shit on by the Rafale.
That's true.
Like if you compare to the Seagull, right? Sure, you get 2 more R-77s, but in reality that is irrelevant because 4 are most of the time enough. You would also get 4 short range ones. You have the same accuracy, same range, same suppression, same HE, same ECM, same speed. Slightly worse turn radius, which most of the time not a big deal. The gun is most of the time worthless, although having the Vulcan is still nice as opposed to like a garbage thing that the Soviets used. Same with the Eurofighter, also 4 missiles of each with the same accuracy, same range, same HE, same ECM, same speed, same air optics. And then we have the Rafale, which has slightly slower missiles, granted, but 5% extra accuracy for no reason. Medium stealth, which is actually huge. And then we have also Israel that has, where the high end ASF has 40% ECM and the mid high end has 50% ECM. Yeah, but I mean it's a high end top tier ASF, and that's fine. It's just since you,
Anyway, I had this thing. You guys, sometime I will send you the link, Razzmann, to you put that on the video. On my streams, when it killed Raven, Nighthawk, 2 ASFs, I think, it got away. Like it could kill like 4
yeah,
planes in one
it's
pass.
in one. Yeah, I mean there are situations where having those 6 Wimples or R-77s, I should say, can certainly pay off. In reality, it doesn't really matter if it's 4 or 6. It's sure, since you essentially get 2 more for 10 points or something. I mean, I guess why not? Same with the Sphere on the BU. But it's plain use in 1 in the lead. Sometimes it just dies to the first plane or something. Like in the first run, just gets double tapped by some random AA or something. Other times it just kills everything and doesn't die. It's just how it rolls.
Mm-hmm. I mean, whole air game is usually just super
Yeah,
RNG.
our game is just very frustrating. I hate it.
Tag 141.
Isn't the Yak like some? Wasn't this like a vertical takeoff prototype thingy?
It is vertical takeoff prototype, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
It looks fancy, kind of like a rocket. Not like like very narrow. Anyway, it's on veteran. Yeah.
In game, it's a great dueling plane.
Yeah.
The one you just fly towards the enemy directly.
Just one plane and then evac because you don't have to payload for anything else.
Yeah.
But it's fine. But it's kind of similar to the PD. It can be frustrating if it's inconsistent, like with a low payload. Yeah, that's the thing with the KWS. For all intents and purposes, the KWS is similar, but has 3 of those are like medium range ones, which is like basically the sweet spot. While it's still coming on a veteran, and just having that extra one, ignoring the short range missiles for now, is just such a big deal. And compared to the Barak 2, which has like 10% more accuracy on the medium range missiles and the tad less range, and also 50% ECM, it's also a bit sad.
Yeah, this unit still has a place in the deck usually.
Yeah.
Most people would recommend this as a go-to ASF, right? Because it's most straightforward use. Just not much thinking. Just send it towards the enemy.
Yeah, and if you lose it, you still have one, and yeah.
I hope for the best.
But I think I think that's, if you were to only run one ASF, then I would go for the Yak, for sure.
Yeah.
Although honestly, you probably still want the second card, or at least like a MiG-23 or something.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then the other Yaks.
Final two units, other Yaks.
No and no. They're slow. Totally. They're not survivable. I mean, the Yak 38M for 70 points has a great payload, no doubt, but it's slow as fuck and not survivable.
And if you already have such air dominance, you have a lot of better options in terms of helicopters and so on to exploit it.
The low speed with its low time over target means you can't even like fly around the map or something for something cheeky. It barely reaches the front line. And of course, the other one with the napalm. Napalm is already pretty bad, like pure napalm. So the only really good napalm bomber is the Phantom. So having 4 of them, which don't cover a lot of ground, it's just one blob essentially on for 70 points on a plane that has no ECM and is slow. Just wasted points.
Total waste of points. Also outclassed by all the other cheap bombers.
Yeah, just if you want the cheapest bomber, just at least use like a MiG-21 SMT, because then you can at least get some value out of it.
Mm-hmm. By killing some
5-pointers.
5-pointers.
All right.
Finally, we finished it.
No, there's naval.
No? No. We don't go for naval. We agreed on not going for naval.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but no, we finished it. We finished Soviets. We finished the coalition review, although the first couple ones might be even a bit outdated by now, so who knows. And yeah. Any closing remarks?
I love the Soviets in this game, and they are super fun deck to play. You learn a lot while you play this deck. You have to develop many new tech. Well, have to rediscover for yourself many new tactics, and
such as helo rushing,
which is also sometimes helo rushing. Yes. No, don't quote me on that. It's one of the decks I never got bored playing. It's a deck I still find entertaining to play even after 2,500 games. And when it's decks that really makes you come back to the game.
All right then. With that, I hope you very much enjoyed this monster of a video, and hope you enjoy this pseudo Christmas present at last. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you for watching, guys. Bye bye.